Welcome back to the FPL deadline stream, this time out of Game Week 8. The international break is finally over and we can enjoy another Fantasy Premier League game week. Or can we? Well, we'll find out by the end. There could even be a reaction stream by the end of today. If not, it will be tomorrow. And there is UCL fantasy content to look forward to ahead of match day 3 with the best limitless and wildcard squads, my team selection, and a hectic deadline stream on Tuesday after deploying a very successful wildcard. It's now about building the foundations for the rest of the league phase. But for FPL today, I haven't actually made any transfers, and I did discuss this in my team selection where I had a few ideas of buying Bukayo Saka, but I might even put them on hold until Game Week 9 or 10. And with the wildcard, I was quite keen on wildcarding in 8, but looking at my team situation right now, I'm actually quite open to saving it until Game Week 13, for example, which is going to be quite a popular strategy amongst the FPL community as well. I've only used the triple captain so far this season, so I've still got the bench boost, free hit, and wildcard still in my arsenal. And then for the second half of the season, of course, that will be a different story. Let me delve into your questions and comments as always, provide all the latest team news, injury updates, and yeah, thank you very much for all your support throughout the last couple of weeks. I've been back with the content over this past week, and it has been a blast talking to you for UCL Fantasy and FPL. So let's get straight into the first question and comment. It's by Easy. Welcome back, Dylan. 2 weeks is like a year waiting for FPL returning. Our wildcard in Game Week 9. It's a special number for me in life. Well, maybe your favourite player is a number 9, but that's fair enough. We all have our lucky numbers, I guess, and if it just seems right, I think Game Week 9 could be a decent opportunity. I kind of talked about Game Week 8 or 13 for most people, but of course that could also vary. James123 says, hello Dylan, is a -4 to sell Mateta Voltemada worth it? I wouldn't do that personally, and I own Voltemada. He went up in price overnight. Mateta is one of the biggest underperformers this season. Crystal Palace have a nice fixture swing in Game Week 10, and whilst I kept mentioning 5 forwards that I'd highly recommend to people in Haaland, Gyökeres, Voltemada, Bowen and Joao Pedro, I think Mateta is still in that sort of category, probably just a little bit short from the other 5, but Mateta is still a decent option. My favourite Palace attacker is Ismaila Sarr, who costs 6.5 million in the midfield, and he's a massive differential, but I wouldn't sell Mateta for a -4 hit this week to Nick Voltemada. And Newcastle, despite having some decent fixtures, 3 of the next 4 are away from home. I'd probably favour Voltemada and Newcastle more so in home matches at St James's Park. Sanindra says, hey Dylan, which is the best on wildcard? So A, Calvert-Lewin, Paqueta, Munoz, Saka, Bowen, Xhaka, Richards. Oh, okay though, so there's only a few players. So B is Bowen, Xhaka, Richards, Saka. C, Reinders, Bowen, Munoz, Eze. I would lean towards B, actually. And for my family team, which one to start between Mukiele, Rodon, Senesi, Richards? Not much separating all of them, to be fair. I just think Palace Bournemouth is a tough game to call, so I'd rather go in a different direction there. It's a close one, but I would probably start Rodon. Got Semenyo and Sarr playing against each other. That's fine. Wouldn't be too concerned about that. Easy says, the stress is back, the engine ready to be active back. Yes, well, we'll see how our motivation is by the end of the weekend. Top 5 players to watch in Game Week 8. I'll probably talk about this more so later on, and it gives me some time to think about players to really look out for. I mean, is Salah one that classifies? Because we all know his record against Man United and the player he is, despite having an underwhelming season so far. But yeah, I'll have a look at that and answer this question in detail later on. Kevy says, we made it. Good morning, buddy. Have the armband on Salah at the moment. It's not stupid. I think it's a decent captaincy decision. There's not much separating him and Haaland. The only reason I've got Haaland top of my captaincy list this week is because of his form for club and country, while Salah has been quite underwhelming. But yeah, 16 goals in 17 games against Man United speaks for itself. And Liverpool in a home game after losing 3 in a row, I'd back them to win quite comprehensively. So it's a good choice in my opinion. Denegator Game says Sanchez, Dubravka, Borro, Esteve, Senesi, Virgil, Konsa, Reinders, Foden, Semenyo, Cunha, Elliot Anderson, Gyökeres, Joao Pedro, Haaland, 1 free transfer, 0.3 in the bank, transfer thoughts, roll transfer, went to wildcard. Okay, so interesting one. Yeah, went to wildcard. It's kind of a similar situation to me where you've got some good players in there. You don't need to wildcard this week necessarily. So probably Game Week 13 is what I'd recommend in terms of the wildcard. You've also got one free transfer, 0.3 in the bank. It's not terrible, but of course, not enough flexibility maybe with a lack of free transfers. But yeah, I think Cunha won't start against Liverpool, which I talked about in my lineups video yesterday, and I'll be showing you my final versions in today's stream. But yeah, I think Cunha is the priority sell right now, and ultimately what you want to do is get the likes of Saka and Sarr in the midfield. So I'd probably recommend to you is doing Cunha to Sarr this week, and then Foden to Saka in Game Week 9. I think that would look really promising, actually. Then you've got a few other fires to put out in other positions, but your front three doesn't need to be touched, to be fair. I know Gyökeres has been very underwhelming, but I still don't think he's a priority sell. You don't have any Arsenal defensive coverage, which is a concern. So even a -4 hit in either Game Week 8 or 9 could pay off by selling Borro to Gabriel, for example. I think long-term that will definitely be the best course of action. Thank you, Lager. Good morning. I wish you a good stream, and I also wish you a good game week. Thank you very much. So let's go to the member questions and catch up that way. And thank you to Kevy, as he says, like and subscribe if you want a green arrow this game week. Ahmad says, Dylan, hope you had a great vacation. Good to have you back. Yes, but as soon as I get back to the UK, yeah, I get ill again. So, yeah, what can I say? This weather's terrible. Bench Pope or Dubravka? I'd actually bench Pope this week, but Newcastle have looked very solid this season. In all the away matches, there have been 0-0 draws, but yeah, I'd go for Dubravka this week. I think Brighton will score. Relax Eye Gamer says, hi Dylan, good to see you back. Likewise, thank you for tuning in. Dean Tim says, hello Dylan, which trio would you start? Senesi, Sarr and Isak, or Romero, Sarr and Isak? Well, basically Isak starts... Your question is Senesi or Romero, so I'm not sure why you're including trios in this. Between Senesi and Romero, I have a slight preference for Senesi, just because of DEFCON. I think both Spurs and Bournemouth will concede, so that's where my answer kind of lies. Welcome, Geotip. Good to see you. Zetlin says, Ndai to Sarr or Enzo or roll? I'd probably roll. As much as I like Sarr and Enzo, and they would form part of like a best wildcard squad, Enzo is a doubt this weekend. I think he'll start in the early kickoff today, but yeah, Ndai is still a solid option. September number 9th of the month, day 9, 1999. I was born. 9 have great time for me at least. Well, yeah, that's fair enough. I wildcarded in Game Week 9 last season. It was better than the original team. Yeah, I mean, usually when you're wildcarding, you have the sort of opinion that your team is better or the wildcard squad is going to be superior on paper, but it doesn't always turn out that way, right? So, yeah, maybe it's a good luck charm for you. Is Enzo fit to play? And if so, should I transfer Fernandes to Enzo or Saka? We don't know. That's the honest answer. I think Enzo will start. He was in my predicted lineups squad yesterday for Chelsea, and you'll see my final version soon. But yeah, I think he will start. Would I sell someone like Fernandes to Enzo this week with the doubt still lingering? I'm not so sure, to be fair, but I think Saka's the best long-term, actually. So yeah, you've got Fernandes. You want to go to either Enzo or Saka? I just go to Saka, to be fair. Josh says, hey Dylan, couldn't sleep, so thought I would tune in. Really happy to be at the top of my league. Got rid of Mbeumo to Sarr. Was there anyone else I should have looked at? No, I think Sarr's one of the best midfielders. Great underlying stats. Cheap price point. Good fixtures coming up, especially from Game Week 10. And I also think Ismaila Sarr is fixture-proof, so I do like him. He was mentioned multiple times in my recent wildcard videos. There is also Semenyo's template, Bukayo Saka, who I talked about before Game Week 7 as a massive differential as well. Gordon is okay. I'm not as keen on him as others are. If Enzo Fernandez is fit, and I think he will start today, he would also be part of my sort of wildcard plans. And I still like Ndai for what it's worth. And even against Man City, he could be decent. But I've got a few team selection issues to kind of iron out before the end of this stream. But yeah, Ndai versus Rangers will be one of the main ones, to be fair. I'm not sure what FPL are doing, by the way. They keep on changing the website or something, so the dimensions change. I might look into that later. But yeah, any essentials this week? I mean, for those that are in a position to do so, buying Salah in the midfield would be incredible. Or for those that have him, definitely hold. But yeah, apart from him and Haaland, there aren't many essential players this week because even the likes of Saka, Semenyo, Sarr have relatively tough fixtures. I do rate them all as captaincy options this week, or as at least as solid, dependable performers. But I don't think their ceiling will be as high as a Haaland or Salah in Game Week 8. Cucurella or Van der Ven in the squad? I would rather start Cucurella. 2 free transfers, Gordon and Timber or Gakpo and Calafiori? Yeah, probably Gordon and Timber. Richarlison and Fernandes to Isak and Enzo, or Fernandes and Reinders to Sak and Sarr. It's going to be Sak and Sarr 100% for me. Would you play Alderete anyway and hope he starts, or bench him for either Indai or Van de Ven? Yeah, it's a tough one. I think Indai is the one I'd start. With Alderete, though, it depends on your other defenders, but in some situations, I would just start him. I think he either starts or doesn't play at all. I'd be surprised if he came on for a one-pointer. I know Ballard could come in and do a decent job, and there's no need to really rush Alderete, but yeah, I'd probably start Indai. Morning, Dylan. Who to start and bench? Chalobah, Burn, Caicedo, Voltemada. I'd definitely start Voltemada. Probably Caicedo, and if it's only one more that I have to start between Burn and Chalobah, yeah, it's tough, but I'd probably go for Chalobah. Faris says start Gay, Goodmanson, or Van de Ven. I'd probably go for Goodmanson this week. I think any Leeds or Burnley defenders, goalkeepers are pretty enticing depending on which team you back for the victory. But yeah, probably Goodmanson this week. Rodon, Gabriel, Anderson, Van de Ven, Tarkovsky start free for defence. Yeah, Gabriel, kind of simple answer. I'd go for Rodon. And yeah, I'd probably say Van de Ven in this situation. So thank you to Mitra for the super chat. He says pick one defender, Mukiele, Anderson, Van de Ven. Is Bruno Tossar worth it? Yeah, I think so. Now, Bruno Fernandes could still get a return against Liverpool. He did it last season at Anfield, and he's still a fixture-proof player, but very frustrating so far in this campaign. In terms of your defender question, I'd probably go for Mukiele. Yeah, I'd start Mukiele there over Van de Ven and Anderson. And I think Bruno Tossar's worth it, but not a necessary transfer. Now, if, for example, Bruno Tossar could also allow you to buy Sak in the midfield, I'd 100% recommend it. But yeah, I'd ultimately go for Sarr over Bruno on a wildcard. And even as part of a free transfer, something I talked about in my team selection podcast a few days ago. But yeah, it's not an absolutely necessary transfer this week, despite United facing Liverpool away. Bowen or Joao Pedro on wildcard. Difficult one because both of them have good fixtures. I think long term, looking beyond the next 5, I'd rather have Joao Pedro. But if you are looking for a sort of short to medium term punt, I do like Bowen. And he went up in price overnight to 7.8 million. Joao Pedro is now 7.6. But yeah, it's probably Joao Pedro for me still. Yeah, thank you, Punjabi. As he says, that is the way to go. Be patient and your questions will be answered. I'm also trying my best to keep my voice together. So yeah. Patience will be appreciated. Caicedo is yellow flag too. Yeah, from yesterday, Enzo Maresca said that Pedro Neto, Moises Caicedo, and Enzo Fernandez are doubtful, but I think Caicedo will start. Relax Eye Gamer says, I hear Joao Pedro is injured. If he is, then I have Reyners to get subbed on. I'll have a look, but there have been a lot of injury news and doubts flying around with Chelsea. With Joao Pedro, he was kind of labelled as doubtful by Enzo Maresca yesterday. He didn't say he was out, so yeah, I'm going to have a look and see where this information is coming from. But since Chelsea is the early kickoff, there is a chance that we get, you know, a few leaks or something. It hasn't really happened for a while, but I wouldn't discount it fully. If you got a link to that piece of news, then be sure to drop it in the live chat. It would be massively appreciated. And the same goes for a like on this video. Hype it as well on the YouTube app. Let's test the hype and see what it's all about with that feature. There's also the subscriptions. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the Champships, further access to my videos, amongst many other perks. My Discord server, the FPL League, and Spotify can all be found in the description. And a 5-star review on Spotify goes a long way. So thank you to those that have done so already. And let's get back into your questions. And let's get this stream to over 200 likes by the end. It would be greatly appreciated as well. Gabriel, Esteve, Gay, Senesi, Cash. Which 3 should I start? Yeah, Gabriel, Senesi, and Gay. I mean, to be fair, Esteve isn't too shabby. I don't mind starting Esteve, but Cash would definitely be last there. That's for sure. Akil says start 2 of Senesi, Gay, Van de Ven, and Alderete. A lot of defender questions this week. Yeah, I'd start Alderete and probably Senesi. Really close call, though, between Bournemouth and Palace. I just think Senesi's more likely to get DEFCON, and I've gone for a 1-1 draw in that game. And start one of Caicedo and Ndai. Well, Ndai's on penalties. Yeah, City is a tough fixture on paper, but I still think Ndai would play in his more favoured left winger position. I think Everton will start one of Dibbling or Alcaraz on the right. And yeah, Ndiaye has scored against Man City in the past at the Etihad in a 1-1 draw. And City, as good as they have been this season, they're still quite vulnerable defensively. So I don't really mind starting Ndiaye this week. His ceiling is certainly going to be... I mean, that is debatable, to be fair. Is his ceiling higher than Caicedo? He's more likely to score, let's put it that way, or get a goal contribution. But Caicedo has so many routes to points, and he has been magnificent for Chelsea this season. So it's a close call. I'd probably lean towards Caicedo, but not by much. I think Ndiaye being on penalties, though, is what kind of levels the playing field. Rice says, greetings, Dylan. Are you down with a cold? Yes, unfortunately. Thank you very much. Hope you're well. Should I play Caicedo, Anthony, or Ndiaye? Well, they're all viable this week. I don't like benching one of them, let alone two. So, yeah, if you have to bench two of them, that's quite tough. But my favourite of the three this week is probably Caicedo. Not by much, though. And I expect his returns to dry up fairly soon. He's still going to be one of the best midfielders at his price point, but he's not going to be scoring, 3 goals in 7 matches. I think over the course of the season in the Premier League, he'll probably get another 3 or 4 for the remainder of the campaign. We'll see how that ages, of course, and maybe, hopefully I can remember my prediction and see if I was right or wrong. Geotips says, start Ndiaye, Senesi or Van der Ven. I would start Ndiaye. Start Alderete or Goodmanson. That's a close one. That is a close call. I would lean towards Goodmanson this week. That would be my take on it. So just give me a second. My technology's having issues. Foden and Richarlison to Enzo and Voltemada. Looks good, but once again, Foden is playing against Everton this week. You could hold him for one more. I would just do Richarlison to Voltemada if you can afford it, and do Foden to Enzo or a different midfielder like Sarr in Gameweek 9, but maybe you need to downgrade Foden to get the funds necessary to buy Voltemada. Richarlison is definitely a clear sell. I agree with you there. Roku says, hello, bench 1. Another defender question. Probably, it's between Burn or Senesi. Sorry, not Senesi. Van der Ven or Burn to bench. So I would start Senesi, Rodon and Gay. Difficult. I think I'd probably bench Burn. Not by much, but I'm not keen on a Newcastle clean sheet this week. Yeah, I saw that about Sean Dyche. I referred to it in my recent videos as well. We'll see how it all goes in the end, but Nottingham Forest, I mean, their strategy this season has been kind of all over the place. Yeah, I did cover this question earlier, mate, with the free defenders. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go through that again. Hey, Dylan, do you think Caicedo will be starting today? Yes. Morning, mate. Have 7.8 million for a mid. What do you think about Gordon? Decent choice, but I think Nick Voltemada is the best Newcastle attacker. And in the midfield, I'd rather go for Enzo Fernandez if he's fit. Ismaila Sarr, Semenyo, Saka. Those are the kind of 4 I'm looking at. Even Ndiaye would be preferred over Anthony Gordon long term. So, decent option, but wouldn't really be part of my wildcard plans, I think. Trenix says, yo, Dylan, I'm not sure about these players. Fernandez, Ndiaye, Van der Ven, Elliot Anderson. Free transfers and 0 in the bank. What transfers would you make? Also, bench boost this week. I don't know your squad, so it's difficult for me to say if you should bench boost or not, but if you are keen on doing it, all the best of luck to you. In terms of the free transfers, ideally I'd recommend Saka, but you would have to make downgrades elsewhere. I think Ndiaye is worth holding on to. Nothing in the bank. So I would buy one of Saka or Sarr for Fernandez. Maybe to make that happen, if you want to get Saka, is maybe downgrade Elliot Anderson. But I don't think that gives you enough money, unless you go all the way down to King, who's just going to sit on your bench all the time. But yeah, I think from those 4 players, I think Ndiaye is worth keeping. The other 3 are sellable, so to speak. Captain Salah or Haaland, I've got both. I put Haaland top of my list, so that is my recommendation, but Salah is a close second. I think that's a nice sort of differential captain for those that want to chase a little bit and go against the template. Serial Football says, hey Dylan, my current bench is Kelleher, Pedro Neto, Esteve and Agbadu, who might not start. Yeah, I don't think Agbadu will start. Will likely be Santiago Bueno and Krejci in central defence in this back 4. Would you still bench boost? Not necessarily. Pedro Neto is an injured out. He might not even start against Forest today. If he's fit enough, he will get the nod. He is Chelsea's first choice left winger. He can also play on the right, but I have a feeling Garnacho could start against Forest in the early kickoff. Esteve is decent. Kelleher, I'm kind of mixed about. I'm not a big fan of him. And Aguidu's not even playing, so I would say no. Baraf says, Yo, Dylan, Caicedo, Dubravka, Rodon, Tarkovsky, good bench boost. Yes, I think so. Even with Tarkovsky, he could get DEFCON, but I'd probably expect 2 to 3 points for him. Denegator Game says, what about Cunha to Eze instead of Cunha to Sarr? I still prefer Sarr. I like Eze a lot. He's looked very lively for Arsenal. Hasn't scored in the Premier League yet, but it would be Ismaila Sarr for me. He's also cheaper. Roll in Gameweek 9 and maybe do Borro to Timber in Gameweek 10. Yeah, it looks solid. And by the way, for those that are unaware, Ben White is still available. He just missed the open training session on Thursday to manage his workload. The same goes for Zubamendi. So yeah, with Timber, I still have the same reservations and concerns about him potentially being rested on the odd occasion, as we saw in match day 2 of the Champions League against Olympiacos. But yeah, it's still Sarr over Eze for me there. Yeah, the same questions being asked again, Jesus. Bench 1, Semenyo, Sarr or Minter? I would not be benching Semenyo with the way he's playing. Probably Minter. Not a big fan of that, to be fair. And I think his record against Newcastle's fairly decent, actually. But benching any of those players is tough. Yeah, reluctantly I'd bench Minter. Justin Nicholas says start Caicedo, Kudus or Reinders. I don't think Kudus has ever scored against Aston Villa, but he has been in good form. Reinders, he's currently on my bench. Yeah, difficult one. Probably Kudus still. I am backing a sort of high-scoring game between Tottenham and Aston Villa. Sell Alderete for Mukiele. I don't really think that's necessary. I know that Alderete is an injury out, but I think that's a very sideways transfer anyway, especially if Alderete is back by Gameweek 9. Richarlison to Voltemada, Bruno to Sarr. Yeah, looks good to me. Now, I bought Voltemada last week because I thought he would score against Forest, which he did, but he only got 6 points. There's also Bowen to look at. I still think Mateta's decent, although I would rather buy Voltemada right now. There's also Joao Pedro, Erling Haaland's obvious, and Gyökeres. But yeah, consider Bowen instead of Voltemada, especially in the short to middle term. Bruno to Sarr, yeah, I like that transfer a lot. Maybe in Game Week 8 even, it could backfire, but Ismaila Sarr is so consistent for his price point. Yeah, I'd probably go for those transfers, to be fair. Borro or Senesi this week? I think I'd start Borro. This is a bit different because he has the attacking potential, which we haven't really seen so far this season. He can get DEFCON. I think both Spurs and Bournemouth will concede, but I just think Borro has a slightly higher ceiling, and he's at home, so yeah, it's going to be Borro for me. Good morning. Should I start with Okafor or Risk or King? I'd start Okafor. Gyökeres or Joao Pedro? Well, someone else earlier did mention him being out or something, Joao Pedro. I'm not sure. I need to double check it. I had a look on Twitter, saw nothing about him being injured, so I'll have another look. But yeah, I still think Joao Pedro will start based on the information I've got. For this week, I do prefer Joao Pedro. So that's probably going to be my answer. I have Chalobah and Enzo for now. Wildcard is activated. Yeah, probably Joao Pedro and then buy Saka in the midfield to cover Arsenal offensively. Ashraf says, hey Dylan, what's your thoughts about removing Richarlison for Bowen? Great transfer, massive upgrade. If it's not Bowen, you can also consider Voltemada. As I mentioned before, the kind of 6 forwards I've been talking about in recent videos and in today's stream. A big up to Paredes for gifting 5 memberships. So to Ashwin, Marcus L, Kevmac, Matthew Duncan, and who's the 5th one? Or did it gift to himself, which I wouldn't mind at all. He definitely deserves it. But yeah, to the 5 members, the new ones, enjoy it. And Paredes is the one to thank there. But yeah, on my screen, only 4 appear. So let me know, Paredes, if you were given the 5th membership, because that would definitely be deserved. What do you think of Isak as a punt? Well, against Man United as a punt, I don't really mind it so much. But yeah, I mean, he's not really someone I'd recommend longer term. I probably wouldn't go in that direction because you've got Ekatike, there's the Champions League and 3 games in a week. Isak's not going to play all of them, so despite having a decent appeal against United, I'd probably avoid Isak for the time being. Hamza says 2 to bench out of Ndai, Reinders, Caicedo, Mukiele. Difficult one. I'm currently benching Reinders and I'm starting Ndai. So I'd recommend the same thing for you as things stand. That is something I could change by the end of the stream. That's a difficult one. I'd probably bench Mukiele. And then maybe Reinders. Not easy. All Things Sports says, hi Dylan, please choose one combination from the below on Wildcard. Raya, Anderson, Burns / Botman, Anthony or Pope, Tim... Oh, okay. Okay, I understand it now. Raya, Anderson, one of Burn or Botman, Anthony or Pope, Timber, Rodon, Anthony. Okay, that's a lot of different variations. Yeah. It's probably going to be the second one with Pope, Timber, Rodon, Anthony. That's my favourite. Kudus or Bruno? For this week, it's Kudus. Triple captain Haaland. Yeah, he could get a goal or 2 against Everton. I just didn't have the same impression I did against Burnley, where I was convinced he would get a massive haul. I think the next best time to triple captain someone like Haaland or Salah on paper is in Game Week 13 to 15. But then you've also got more chance of rotation and reduced minutes, so that's also the downside to it. But yeah, Everton could still be a tough cookie to crack. I'm expecting a fairly low-scoring game. I think City will score twice. Haaland could definitely get both of them, but yeah, I'm not so sure. Yeah, Paredes got the 5th membership. That's fine, though, because you've gifted so many, so enjoy it. I've seen that happen before with someone gifting a membership and him getting himself. It's like that Barack Obama meme, just giving himself a medal. But yeah, definitely well deserved. You've gifted so many over the years, so thank you very much. And enjoy the early access to my videos for an entire month. What do you think about Mavropanos as a pickup? I mean, West Ham defenders could be considered with Nuno and their fixture swing. And I think the likes of Mavropanos and Kilman are decent for Defcon. I think it's a wait and see, though. And against Brentford, I still think they'll concede. Diouf is my favourite right now with the assist potential. And he's quite exciting to own compared to Mavropanos. But I'd probably rank Kilman a little bit higher than Mavropanos at the moment. But that could definitely be something I change my mind about. So yeah, I'd wait and see with Mavropanos. The only West Ham player I'm sure about is Jarrod Bowen. Then it's probably Diouf in second, but I'd probably wait a week or 2 before investing in that West Ham defence. Austin says, hey Dylan, can you recommend benching one for me? Reluctantly, I would bench Stack. I think any of them could get a return this week, but yeah, it's going to be Stack. Thank you, Punjabi, for moderating the chat. I appreciate it. Anderson to Menetzi thoughts. I'm not a big fan of Menetzi in FPL. If you want that sort of 6 million midfielder or under, I'd recommend Minter, Caicedo. Even Reinders would be a preference over Menetzi. Granit Xhaka. Those are the sorts of players I'd recommend over the Wolves attacker. Yeah, I think João Pedro will start. I'm not sure where that information came from. Start Calvert-Lewin or Gravenberch. I'm not a big fan of Calvert-Lewin, to be fair, but it's probably going to be him. Yeah, I think so. There was a lot of like misquotes and stuff flying around. I think even one Chelsea page said that João Pedro is out. But if you watch the press conference, Enzo Maresca said João Pedro is doubtful, or is a doubt. Those were his exact words. And then he said Pedro Neto is the one who's a bigger risk, actually. Yeah, I'll show you my predicted lineups very soon. It's based on research I've done on other predicted lineups and also my kind of gut feelings. So you'll see the success rate and stuff, and then it's up to you if you want to use that to base your transfers and decisions off it. So take it with a pinch of salt. It's used as a guide. I'll go through it in a few minutes. Just going to go for some different screen first and a few more questions. I think Enzo Fernandez will start. Triple Arsenal defence, what do you think? I'd recommend 2, and then having Saka in the midfield or Gyökeres up front. That is what I've always talked about. T Salama 7 says Van de Ven plus Kudus to Richards, Enzo, Sarr, both 1 or none. 4 free transfers, bench boost. Yeah, good position to be in. I do like the players you're bringing in, but there is a case to keep one or maybe both of those Spurs players for the next 2 game weeks. I don't think their priority sells now against Aston Villa at home and Everton away. So, yeah, ultimately Kudus to start is something I'd highly recommend, but you don't need to do it this week. And to be fair, if you don't do it now, you're probably waiting until game week 10 because Crystal Palace face Arsenal in game week 9. So I'd probably keep Van der Ven and Kudus for now, actually, and then sell them to Richardson Sarr in game week 10. That's my recommendation based on the fixtures. Yeah, it was Paredes who got the last membership. Start Diouf or Tarkowski. I'd go for Diouf. No Enzo news really, Mario. Nothing new from yesterday. He's a doubt. That's all that Maresca said yesterday in the press conference. Saka AEP says, would you play both Foden and Reinders over playing Paqueta or bench one of the City players? Yeah, tough one. I'd probably start both City players, but Paqueta is on penalties, so he's always got that chance of doing something. Start Rodon or Senesi? Probably Rodon this week. It's one of the rare times I would say that. Jadon Anthony, we don't know anything about. There was no update by Scott Parker in his press conference on Thursday, but I think he will start. Who's the best budget under 4.5 defender? Aside of Mukiele and Alderete, it's probably going to be Rodon or Goodmanson for me. As for Tosin Adarabioyo, I think he'll start now. That's a change I've made from yesterday's predicted lineups, but he's not someone you can count on to start week in, week out. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend Tosin. Maybe Chalobah's the Chelsea defender I'd probably go for right now, then Cucurella in second. I'm going Pope and Dubravka, but it's hard to bench Pope. Yeah, it is hard, but if you're basing off the fixture, I think Dubravka is more appealing, but ultimately Newcastle have the better defence. I'm not wildcarding right now. I don't think it's necessary, and I'd have probably a bigger upside and more points gained by deploying it later in the season, like in Game Week 13, for example. Ndai or Doku for long term? Ndai. Caicedo or Reinders this week? On paper, I think Reinders might look more appealing, to be fair, but it's a close one. It really is. Yeah, Caicedo, I mean, he's been scoring some brilliant goals in this campaign. He has been getting DEFCON. Of course, in the last 2 matches, it was only 1 defensive action shy from securing it. And he's an injured out this week. To be fair, something I would change with my answers to the questions. So this is kind of like my final ranking at the moment, because I think Ndai Reinders is almost 50-50 for me. And that is where this coin might come in handy. I'm going to say Ndai, Reinders, and Caicedo in that order. So I'd have a slight preference for Reinders. Now, Pep Guardiola did provide an update on Friday, and he said that Kovacic needs quality minutes, and he could play 50 to 60 minutes. So with that assumption, could he take Reinders' spot? Or maybe Nico Gonzalez? It's actually possible, and I was considering putting Kovacic in my Man City predicted 11. So yeah, I'd probably lean towards Reinders, but not by much. I'm not expecting much from either this week anyway. I think Alderete will play. Sell Salah to Enzo. Don't sell Salah this week. No. There's even a case to keep Salah until Game Week 10. Now, if you don't have Erling Haaland and your biggest cash cow, the easiest route is to sell Salah, I understand it. Otherwise, I just don't think that's necessary. Okay, so we've got a few super chats in the building, which I'm going to go through now. Mitra says, draft question. Bench 1, Virgil, Borro, Chalobah, Diouf, Richards, Igor, Thiago. That is a tough one. Wow, that's pretty tough. Probably Richards. He's the one I'd bench. Yeah, I think so. His ceiling is the lowest of those players, and I think Crystal Palace will concede. Yeah, Victor Gyökeres is a hold. Yeah. Ndai or Doku covered. Bench boost of Dubravka, Ndai, Anderson and Rodon. Yeah, looks pretty good, to be fair. I mean, Anderson kind of lets it down, but he could get 2 or 3 points from DEFCON anyway. The rest looks quite solid, actually. Yeah, that's an interesting one with Reinders or Minter. So I already kind of put it out there that there is a chance that Reinders is benched. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but City do face Villarreal and Aston Villa away in the next week. This could be a nice time to give him a little bit of a rest, give Kovacic some minutes, and maybe Reinders is the one to drop out. But yeah, if Reinders does start, he does look appealing against Everton, and I'd probably regret benching him. From those players, though, yeah, I think I'd probably bench Reinders. It's really close. Some of these questions are 50-50, especially in the midfield. I think in the defense, I'm probably more certain about it. But yeah, I think with this, there's not much to separate these players this week. Should I bench Mr. Dubravka, Estev, Anderson, and Dewsbury Hall? Not too shabby. I think that's decent. Is that Elliot Anderson? Yeah, I think that's fine. Anton Villa says, alright Dylan, on wildcard but still not sure to go with cheaper fifth midfielder or third striker. Probably cheaper fifth midfielder because that could be Xhaka or someone who can give you 4 or 5 points consistently and offer you that squad depth that's necessary, especially during the Christmas period, which is coming up very soon. Best 1 week punt striker this week, currently on bench boost and looking to change Chris Wood, 0 in the bank, wildcarding next week. Well, you've got enough money for Voltemada. I'm not sure if he's really a 1 week punt because Brighton is a tough fixture for Newcastle. But if I'm looking at the other alternatives, they're all more expensive, like Gyökeres, Joao Pedro, and Jarrod Bowen. Even Mateta as well. So I'd probably say Nick Voltemada, actually. Fernandes and Van der Ven to Enzo and Gabriel. It looks good to me. Just bear in mind that Enzo is an injured out. I can't guarantee you 100% he's going to start. I think he will. And if he's fit, he's going to play. There's no doubt about it. But Chelsea need to be smart about this. And if there is any risk of injury, they're not going to do it, right? We saw what happened with Palmer. So, yeah, I'd probably go for Enzo Fernandez. And I think Gabriel's fine. But I also have mentioned Ismaila Sarr. If you want to go a little bit safer with, obviously, Sarr starting this weekend for sure. There's no doubts about that. Well, to start, Estev, Senesi or Van der Ven, leaning towards Estev. Yeah, I think Estev is a reasonable shout. I think Burnley Leeds will be low scoring. Yeah, we'll see how that ages. Thoughts on Longstaff? Not really an FPL consideration for me. I mean, there was a bit of hype around Snack a few weeks ago. That died down very quickly. Yeah, I think with Leeds, you're looking at those defenders at 4 to 4.1 million. I think Darlow isn't really a consideration with Perry now back in the fold. Darlow will start this weekend, but after that, it's anyone's game. And Calvert-Lewin is just too much of a troll, to be fair. My favourite Leeds midfielder in the long term is probably Okafor, but yeah, I just wouldn't go for Longstaff. I think Jacques is a better option at a similar price tag. Yeah, good bench boost. I mean, would Semenyo really be on your bench? That's my question. Like, who's starting over him? But yeah, looks really good. Sanchez or Dubravka? I'm going for Dubravka right now. And that's probably another coin toss. I'll put a poll out. That will help you in your decision too. But I just think Burnley have a slightly better chance of a clean sheet this week, as things stand. DCL, Igor Thiago, or Strand Larsen? As things stand, it's probably Igor Thiago. Would you sell Anderson for a better bench boost? Depends which defender you can go to, but I'd probably say yes. Now, Anderson is one of the best for DEFCON amongst defenders, but at the same time, Fulham have kept 5 clean sheets since the beginning of last season, so I just don't trust them defensively. And I really hope they don't keep a clean sheet today. Would you do Munoz to Gabriel and die to another midfielder or save the transfer? I'd probably save the transfer. As much as I like Gabriel and maybe the likes of Sarr. Yeah. I believe Enzo and Alderete will start, just to confirm for the upteenth time. I'm now going to go for some different screens and then go back to your questions, so stay patient and they will be answered. Let's go to the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating. West Ham are top until Gameweek 13. Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Sunderland and Man City are in the top 5. And Arsenal, who were top between Gameweek 7 to 12, are now 9th. It goes to show how quickly the FDR can change. Near the bottom, there is Man United, Newcastle, Liverpool, Bournemouth and Leeds. And with predicted points, Haaland is top once again, and Salah is just behind him. And to be honest, that kind of reflects my opinion of the captaincy. I think Salah is a very close second with his incredible record against Man United. Mateta is third, actually. He's one of the biggest underperformers this season. I believe he's had 9 big chances, but not enough goals to show for it. Isak, Semenyo, Sarr, Foden, Saka, Bruno Fernandes and Gvardiol complete the top 10 for predicted points, according to Fantasy Football Hub. And in terms of what they recommend, Dubravka over Sanchez and Reinders over Voltemada is what they suggest. Everything else is the exact same. And that includes the captaincy as well. Yeah, the captaincy on Haaland and then Semenyo as the vice. In terms of transfers, you might be surprised about this, but they recommend a defender move. Oh no, they've changed it now. Thank you very much for making me look like a fool. Voltamata to Mateta is what they recommend, and I'm not really sure about that. I just don't think that's really necessary. But before, I think they recommended Borro to Timber. I do have enough money to make that transfer, so that is something else I could consider. But I think rolling this week is probably in my best interest, and then next week I can buy Saka and Sarr for Bruno Fernandes and Gakpo. I think that looks really solid. Now, of course, Sarr does play against Arsenal next week, but long term, that is a great transfer. Now, in terms of price rises, we could see Pope, Rice, Stack, Gordon all go up in price this night, and we could expect even more transfer activity over the coming hours. They also think Calvert-Lewin could rise in price. What are people doing, you could argue, but yeah, surely he's got a few goals in him eventually. The likes of Murillo, Gibbs-White, Cunha, Grealish, Morgan Rogers, Doughty, White, Pape Matar Sarr, Kearney, Virgil van Dijk, Elliot Anderson, Sinchenko, Gruev, Lisandro Martinez, Valdimarsson, Pau Torres, they could all go down in price. And use websites like livefpl.net for these price predictions. They're very solid, that's for sure. And let's compare the stats of two of my favourite midfielders in FPL. They could both be in my team by Gameweek 10, Bukayo Saka and Ismaila Sarr. Now, despite being significantly cheaper, Sarr is bettering Saka in almost all of these stats. Now, with shot volume, Saka does lead slightly with 9 shots to Sarr's 7. They both have 7 inside the box. And in terms of shots on target, it's identical, but Sarr does have the lead. And the XG is also definitely in the Senegalese forward's favour with 2.93. The expected assist though, yep, Saka does take the nod there. And Ismaila Sarr has double the number of big chances and big chance created, but Saka has created more opportunities overall. So I think both of them are great acquisitions for your FPL team. However, I think with Sarr, the best time to buy him on paper would be in Gameweek 10 when Crystal Palace have a great fixture swing, starting with Brentford at home. Whilst with Bukayo Saka, you could just buy him now. And I talked about this before the West Ham game last week, or a couple of weeks ago now, as well. Let me briefly show you my wildcard squad that I talked about in that video a couple of days ago. So Raya and Dubravka as the goalkeepers. You could also consider Nick Pope as an alternative there. I've gone for Mukiele, Senesi and Gabriel. And if you do back Alderete to start, which I do to be fair, you can also go for him over Mukiele. There is also the likes of Rodon and Goodmanson as your 4 to 4.1 million defender of choice. I've gone for Sarr, Caicedo, Semenyo and Saka in the midfield. In Dies on the bench, Voltamada, Haaland and Joao Pedro up front. And there's also Byrne and Richards in this 15-man squad. And a few changes could also include something like this, like Enzo Fernandez coming in. And then instead of Caicedo, we go for Granit Xhaka. That's something else you could do. So just to show you a few alternatives to the wildcard squad I showed you a few days ago. And if you want to go even more differential in certain positions, we could do something like this, where Joao Pedro makes way for Jared Bowen. And you would still have a bit of money in the bank in a lot of situations. I've got 0.6 with my team value. But yeah, I think something like this looks very solid as well. So I've been quite bullish on some of these templates forming in the midfield and defensive line, and I always recommend some differentials in these videos, and I think having Bowen and Voltamada is going to be one of them, that's for sure. And finally, I will refer back to this later on, FPL Challenge. This week, the challenge is called Ice Cold, so big chances scored, return 6 additional points, 1 player per club, unlimited budget. I've got Rufus in goal against Wolves at home. That could change to one of Darlow or Dubravka, actually. I've got Gabriel against Fulham away, Salah and Semenyo, Haaland as my captain, and Joao Pedro against Nottingham Forest. But I'm quite tempted to captain Salah in FPL Challenge with his brilliant record against Man United. But if you look at this metric, this challenge, big chances scored. Who gets the most big chances? It's Erling Haaland. Who's got the most goals? It's a simple formula. Erling Haaland could get a massive return. And yeah, he's just the best striker in the Premier League right now. So based on the challenge this week, it's hard to go against Erling Haaland, but I think Salah is definitely a great alternative. That's something I'll deliberate before the deadlines for those respective matches, if I remember to change my bloody team. So once we get the Nottingham Forest and Chelsea lineups, they will be covered in this video, and I'm going to let this play out for a little bit in terms of my team selection graphics, which I talked about a couple of days ago. It shows you how I did in game week 7, which actually was quite a decent week for me. I got the exact same number of points as I did in game week 6. So things are looking a bit more promising now, and maybe that is why I've kind of held off on playing the wildcard, which I thought I'd use in game week 8, but I just don't really see a need to do so. And ultimately, I've had some fairly consistent performers. The midfield is probably the area that is quite weak in certain areas. Bruno Fernandes has underperformed, Reinders is so inconsistent, and then I've got Cody Gakpo, who was on my bench, and he scored, of course, against Chelsea. So over the coming weeks, I think Bruno Fernandes to one of Sarr or Saka is possible, and I could still sell both Fernandes and Gakpo to those two midfielders who face each other in game week 9 with Arsenal hosting Crystal Palace. Now, if I wanted to get Saka in this week, the best way to do it is probably borrow to Senesi or another defender and then buying Saka for Bruno Fernandes. But as things stand, I'm going for Dubravka over Robert Sanchez in goal, Borro, Lacroix and Gabriel, with Bruno Fernandes, Gakpo, Semenyo, and Ndai, Joao Pedro, Haaland and Voltemada up front. On my bench, there's Robert Sanchez, Reinders, Konsa, and the suspended Reinildo. And in terms of the captaincy, nothing spectacular or, kind of groundbreaking. Erling Haaland takes the armband, and Semenyo is the vice. If I had Salah, I would definitely consider going for him as the captain, and he is the only one who rivals Erling Haaland this week, in my opinion. Let's also talk about my scoreline predictions and a few other bits and bobs like the clean sheet odds. Nottingham Forest 1, Chelsea 2 is my prediction for the early kickoff. Brighton 1, Newcastle 1, Burnley 0, Leeds 1, Crystal Palace 1, Bournemouth 1, Man City 2, Everton 0, Sunderland 2, Wolves 1, Fulham 0, Arsenal 1, Tottenham Hotspur 2, Aston Villa 2, Liverpool 3, Man United 1, and West Ham 2, Brentford 1. So, in terms of team weakness and the highlight play this week, it is to do with that huge game tomorrow between Liverpool and Man United. And I've got Mohamed Salah in here. Despite an underwhelming start to the season, people are still selling him now. I think that's a massive mistake. There's also Brentford away and Aston Villa at home over the next 3 game weeks. And I think Salah could be a great choice in all 3 matches. Would I captain him over Erling Haaland? Maybe not, especially in game weeks 9 and 10. But if you're not really buying Haaland with that extra money by selling Salah, I don't really think going to Saka is an upgrade necessarily for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Will Saka offer better value? Yes. Do Arsenal have better fixtures overall? They do. But I just don't think Salah is a priority sell right now in some situations. I think people are just selling him because they're kind of sick of the lack of returns and he's not offering enough value at 14.4 million. But you can see his heat map there, and it is quite promising because the blue circles indicate the chances conceded by Man United this season, and I think Salah will exploit some of their weaknesses on the right-hand side. Let's also talk about the clean sheet odds, and Man City are top against Everton at home with a 48% probability of keeping a clean sheet. Arsenal are just behind them with 42%. Sunderland are 3rd, Leeds are 4th, Liverpool and Tottenham complete the top 6, and one change from the other day is that Spurs now have a 32% chance of keeping a clean sheet. It was 31% when I recorded that video, and Man United are bottom with only 13% against Liverpool away. As for the top 10 captains, I don't think it's a great week for the free hit, for example, and also in terms of standout fixtures, but I've gone for something like this. Even Enzo Fernandez could enter the equation if he starts in the early kickoff, but I've got Ismaila Sarr in 10th, Gyökeres in 9th, and 2 Liverpool attackers in Isak and Gakpo, comprising of 8th and 7th. Semenyo just misses out on the top 5, where Joao Pedro is in there. Saka's 4th, Bowen is 3rd with a good record against Brentford. I believe he has 7 goals against the Bees throughout his career. Salah is 2nd, and obviously I mentioned his record against United earlier. 16 goals in 17 games, multiple assists as well, and Erling Haaland is top, facing Everton at home as well. So what I'm going to do now is show you the predicted lineups for all 20 Premier League teams, and after that, maybe take a... What have I done? Okay, that was just... No, that is not what I meant to do. So let's go to the lineups now, and I'm going to pause it and go through them one by one. So let's go for Arsenal first, and what you see on the top right corner of your screen is the amount of correct predictions I've got for every single team. So 7 game weeks, 77 is the absolute maximum I can get. And for Arsenal, I've gotten 69. And I've gone for Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori, Zubamendi, Eze, and Rice. It wouldn't surprise me to see one of Zubamendi or Rice benched against Fulham, and then Merino starting in the midfield. That is certainly possible. And it's very difficult to also guess between Trossard or Martinelli on the left. It could even be Eze as well. But I've gone for Martinelli here as a key change from yesterday's video. Victor Gyökeres and Saka would complete the starting 11. With Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins has gone down in price to 8.6 million. He is a clear sell in Fantasy Premier League. Emi Martinez in goal, Cash, Konsa, Pau Torres and Dean, Bogard and Kamara in the midfield, McGinn and Rodgers as the so-called attacking midfielders, Donyell Malen and Watkins up front in the side that beat Burnley 2-1 in Game Week 7. With Bournemouth, I'm quite conflicted about Hill or Jimenez at right back. I've gone for Hill this time round, and we'll see how that ages, but Petrovic, Diakite, Senesi and Trafford will surely start, and we could even see Christie get the nod over Scott to partner Adams in the midfield. And there's another key change that will happen because Brooks is injured. It's a hamstring problem that he's got, and he will be out for the next couple of weeks, so it will either be Tavernier or Adley starting on the right-hand side. I think Kluivert will start anyway in that attacking midfield position. Semenyo on the left. He is now 8 million in FPL, and Evanesson would be up front. The next team will be Brentford, and this is such a difficult team to predict sometimes because of the formation, and ultimately that will influence certain things. If it's a 4-2-3-1, Dango Ouattara will start, and typically they've been playing this back five in the so-called difficult fixtures, but every single predicted lineup I've seen, or the vast majority of them, have indicated a back five for Brentford. Keller in goal, Coyote, Van den Berg, Collins, Ajer, and Lewis Potter, Yarmoliuk, Henderson and Damsgaard in the midfield, Igor Thiago and Kevin Schade up front. With Brighton, I've gone for Verbruggen, Vifa, Van Heck, Dunk, and it's between De Kuyper or Kadioglu at left back, Beleba and Ayari in the midfield, Minter and Mitoma if he's available, and that will be obviously a big talking point there for Brighton. He is so important for them, and ultimately if he's not available, it'll be Minter on the left, and we could see Diego Gomez start once again. I think Danny Welbeck will be the number 9, but with Brighton, they can also play Rott in that position, and they can also play a few... Well, they can just change things around a little bit. Obviously, Gruder is injured. He's ruled out definitively, but I think Mitoma will start against Newcastle at home, and that would be a massive boost for the Seagulls. With Brighton, it's between Tuanzebe and Ekdal. That's my biggest concern, and they have 2 injury doubts in Jaden Anthony and Lau Foster. Dubravka will start in goal, with Walker, Lauren, Esteve and Hartman completing that defensive line with Tuanzebe, Chiwana, Colin, Florentino Luis and Anthony in the midfield, and then Lau Foster up front if he's available. Now, a lot of people have been asking about this with Chelsea. You can see the success rate a little bit lower here compared to the others. Sanchez in goal, Gusto, Chalobah and Tosin, which is the key change from yesterday's video. Cucurella, Reece James, Moises Caicedo, Esteval and Garnacho on the wings, and Enzo Fernandez just behind Joao Pedro. With Crystal Palace, I've gotten a 97% success rate, so this is the most, reliable, I guess, and the easiest team to predict up until this point. Dean Anderson in goal, Richards, Lacroix and Gay. I've gone for Kamada this time over Hughes. That's another tricky call, but the rest seems quite locked in with Wharton, Munoz, Mitchell, Sarr, Yeremy Pino and Jean-Philippe Mateta. With Everton, I've also gotten a decent record with 71 correct. Pickford in goal, who signed a new contract recently with the Toffees. O'Brien, Tarkovsky and Keane, who is an injury doubt. And Branthwaite is back on the grass, but I don't think he'll start against Man City away. Mikalenko, Idrissa Gana Gay and Ghana. And it's between Alcaraz or Dibbling to replace the ineligible Jack Grealish. He can't play against his parent club. So I think Ndiaye will be the left winger, and I think Alcaraz is the most likely to start on the right, with Dewsbury Hall behind Beto. This could easily be Barry, but I've gone for Beto this time round. With Fulham, it's between a 4-2-3-1, which is their traditional formation, or this kind of back three. Leno in goal, Diop, Anderson and Bassi. Kearney would replace the injured Lukic if he's unavailable, and the same goes for King up front over Raul Jimenez if the Mexican is unavailable. Sandenberg, Sessegnon, Castagna, Wilson and Iwobi would complete this starting 11. And with Leeds, I've gotten 72 correct. I think it's the best success rate for any of the newly promoted clubs. So Darlow in goal, that was a confirmed start by the manager Daniel Farke in his press conference. He will definitely be in goal against Burnley away. Bogle, Rodon, Strauch and Goodmanson in that defensive line. Ampadu, Longstaff and Stack with Aronson, Okafor and Calvert-Lewin. Now, Liverpool have made a few changes, and ultimately it's so difficult right now. They don't have a fully settled 11. They've got some important games coming up, but Man United will be the most important of them all to get back on track in the Premier League. Mamardashvili will start in goal, and it's between Szoboszlai, Frimpong and Bradley. Take your pick. I've gone for Szoboszlai this time round, and if Konate's fit, he will start alongside Virgil van Dijk, with Kirkers on the left, Gravenberch and McAllister in central midfield, Salah and Gakpo on the wings, and Wirtz just behind Alexander Isak. With Manchester City, I've gone for Donnarumma, Matheus Nunes, Ruben Dias, Gavardio and O'Reilly. Aït-Nouri is close to being back. He might even be in the squad against Everton, but ultimately I think O'Reilly will keep his spot for now, and I think Kovacic could start over one of Reinders or Nico Gonzalez. That is a possibility. Maybe even Bernardo Silva with Foden shifting to the right, but that's what I've gone for right now with the Citizens, with Erling Haaland up front, Doku and Bernardo Silva on the wings, and Reinders and Foden just behind the Norwegian robot. With Man United, I've got Lamens in goal, Yoro, De Ligt and Shaw, Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes, and Dorgu would be the change in the left wing-back spot to be a bit more defensive against Liverpool. Dalot on the right, Mbumo, Mount and Sesko. I believe Cunha could be benched once again. We're now on to Newcastle. Nick Pope in goal, Trippier and Burn as the fullbacks, Chow and Botman in central defence, Tonali, Guimaraes and Joelinton, who is yellow flagged, but Eddie Howe said he should be fine. It's between Elanga or Murphy in the right winger position. I've got Gordon on the left and Voltemada up front. Nottingham Forest played a back three in their recent game, and they could kind of go back to this formation again. The likes of Sinchenko and Douglas Luiz are available, but they might not be rushed back, and instead they'll get cameo appearances off the bench per se, with Sells in goal, Murillo, Milenkovic and Morato, Savona and Williams as the wing-backs, Sangare and Anderson in the midfield, and Chris Wood is doubtful, I should say, and I think he's fine. That's what Ange Postecoglou said, but I think this is a great opportunity to start Igor Jesus, who has been brilliant in the cup games for Ange Postecoglou. Gibbs White on the right and Ndoye on the left-hand side, and some predicted lineups do have Hudson-Odoi starting as well. We're now on to Sunderland with Roofs in goal and two injury doubts in Alderete and Siddiqui. I still think they'll start. Hume and Masuaku as the fullbacks, Mukiele in central defence, Xhaka, Taubi, Adingra, Lefay and Isidore would be the final players in the Black Cat starting 11. And with Tottenham Hotspur, I've made a few key changes, well in fact just one, in Mateus Tel starting over Richarlison, and that isn't set in stone, but ultimately with Richarlison, I don't think he starts the next two Premier League games per se, and there is also the Champions League match in midweek. The Vicario in goal, Borro, Romero, Van de Ven and Udogie, João Paulinho and Bentancur, Kudus and Odobert on the wings, and Xavi Simons just behind Tel. With West Ham, a 4-1-4-1 or 4-2-3-1 is most likely, with Areola, Wan-Bissaka, Mavropanos, Kilman, Diouf, Magassa, Fernandes, Bowen, Paqueta, Somerville, and Callum Wilson. And finally, we're on to Wolves, the one I've done the worst in by far. Hwang Yi-chan is an injury doubt, but I've got him in the starting 11. They could make a change there. But Johnston in goal, Chichawa, Santiago Bueno, Krejci, and Hugo Bueno is the likely defensive line, with Joao Gomez and Andre in central midfield. Arias, Menetzi, Strand Larson will start, and I believe Hwang Yi-chan will on the left, but I'm less sure about that compared to the others. So after that extensive coverage, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. I'm now going back to my FPL team, and if there are any updates, team news, and stuff like that that happen over the next hour, they will be covered before the deadline, and I'll also be answering your questions and making sure you're all prepared for the rest of the season. Let's get this video to over 200 likes. It'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you to those that have done so already. All the members, super chatters, and patrons, you're all massively appreciated. And let's get back into business. So I think there were more gifted memberships, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, thank you to Ahmed for gifting 5. I massively appreciate that. I'll read out the people who were gifted one as well. So to Ratamp, Diogo Varandas, Eric Garcia, Lurientu Simeon, enjoy those memberships. And has it happened again where you gifted, well actually you can't gift one yourself, right? You're already a member. Yeah. I'm not sure what's happening with YouTube if that's the case. Maybe they're stealing memberships, but yeah. Let me know. Hopefully there is a fifth person who was gifted it. That's what was supposed to happen. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. Isn't Gravenberch a doubt? Arne Slots talked about this in his press conference yesterday. He said he's had some training sessions under his belt and he should be fine. I don't want to see Dalot start. Would rather see Amad Diallo. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I know a United fan who absolutely hates Diogo Dalot, and I don't really blame him, but I just think Amrin will go a bit more defensive with two more traditional defenders and fullbacks in Dalot and Dorgu, but we'll wait and see. I think for United fans, they'll be hoping that I'm wrong and that Amad Diallo starts. Yeah, Josh King, I mean, I don't want to really jinx it because he does play my team later, but yeah, Josh King at 4.5, a reasonable sort of 8th attacker to sit on your bench most of the time, if not all the time. I think the goals and assists will come. But yeah, it's just with Josh King, I think there is better value in the midfield. You've got Xhaka, Caicedo, all these players I've mentioned before, Minter, even Reinders. Those are the players I'd be looking at in terms of your fifth midfielder. Only FPL will get someone waking up at 4 a.m. Welcome back, everyone. That is very early. I woke up at 6, involuntarily, I should say. And yeah, then for this stream, I woke up at 8, set things up and updating the graphics, all those price changes and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, if it wasn't for FPL, I'd be sleeping still probably, or waking up just now. Pape Sarr or Reinders? Yeah, it's going to be Reinders for me. Not a massive fan of Pape Sarr, and I said that from the beginning. Yeah, no worries, Ratamp, and yeah, the one to big up there is Ahmed, as usual. Yeah, Gordon should start. I'd be very surprised if he didn't. And also thank you to Ahmed, as he says. For those that are spamming, just be patient. You will have your questions answered. Okay, so I'm going to go through the top and see what was kind of unanswered and whiz through them. Bench Gay or Senesi? Probably Gay. I'd bench Gay. Raya or Timber for third Arsenal spot? Raya. Ndai to Enzo and Richarlison to Bowen. Thoughts? Looks solid. I just don't think you need to sell Ndai. And Enzo Fernandez is still an injury doubt. I think he'll start, but I couldn't guarantee you it 100%. Dogbead win. I don't know your team, so impossible for me to say. For most people, I would say Gameweek 8 or 13, but it just depends on your situation. If you need to make a lot of transfers now, or you feel like you're going to make some massive upgrades, then do it in Gameweek 8. But ultimately, if you've gone the last 2 weeks, you know, thinking about your team and, you know, not really feeling convinced about the wild card, why would you do it now with 50 minutes left until the deadline? So, yeah, probably Gameweek 13 for a lot of people. For others, it will be Gameweek 8. It can vary, of course. There isn't like a specific formula. Sometimes it can be Gameweek 9, but yeah, I think for most people, I've been talking about this for quite some time now. Gameweek 8 or 13 is the best way to go. Punjabi says, my team, should I bench Boostilin? It's a decent bench, to be fair. I'd probably do it, yeah. Going all out with 5 mids, Caicedo, Sarr, Saka, Spedio, Bruno, or sub one out for Richarlison. I'm not even sure if Richarlison starts, so no, I'd keep those 5 midfielders, actually. Wilson or Isidore? Probably Isidore. With West Ham, the only forward you want is Jarrod Bowen. Best 5-point family midfielder to buy, Xhaka. I think he's absolutely fine. Is Gyökeres a buy? Long time since he scored in any format. An impotence that should be examined. Could the fixture swing help him? The goals will come with Gyökeres. I'm not really too concerned about that. For those that are selling him, I don't really understand that logic. It's more understandable in terms of those that haven't invested yet and that don't want to do it now, and instead you want to go for Saka. And that's something I talked about before Gameweek 7 anyway, but I think Gyökeres is a hold. Is he a buy? He is still my top 5 forwards in the game, and I think he's going to score goals, so I'd probably say yes. He's definitely more of a buy than a sell, that's for sure. Relaxed Eye Gamer puts his team, any changes? Over the coming weeks, I would recommend having Saka and Sarr in the midfield. So you have a similar sort of setup to me with Gakpo and Fernandes. Those two can make way for those midfielders I mentioned. Decent defensive line. And also your forwards are pretty solid. I mean, Mateta has been the big underperformer, but you probably keep him. If he continues to disappoint, then you could pull the trigger, but I'd probably keep him for now. Thorson Esteval, Not really a big fan of him as a FPL option, to be fair. He scored the winner against Liverpool as a substitute. I think he'll start today, but ultimately with Chelsea, it's one of Enzo Fernandez or Caicedo in the midfield, and that's about it. You obviously got Joao Pedro up front, a Chalobah, Cucurella defensively, even Sanchez and goal are fine, but in the midfield, there are only two that I'd look at. I would definitely bring in Timber, says Rye. Fair enough, but if it's between him and Raya, I'm going to say Raya, but it is team dependent. Ahmed says, I need to stop taking -4s, but they have served me well the last couple of game weeks. Hopefully last one for a while, but felt I had to bring in Gabriel before getting priced out. Yeah, I get that. I used to take hits for fun, basically, and sometimes they worked out, and sometimes they were massive gut punches, to say the least. But yeah, Gabriel, I think, is definitely worth that -4 hit long term. Jadon Anthony is a injury doubt. He is not ruled out, though. That's a clear difference, and I think he will start. He wasn't mentioned in the press conference by Scott Parker, which I think is good news, but maybe that's maybe you feel differently about that. Thank you, Barra, for becoming a differential. That is massively appreciated. Welcome to Stepaki. I'm guessing that's Caicedo, not coincido, which is a Spanish word, but yeah, Caicedo should start, in my opinion. Thank you, Alfred69. Hi, Dylan. Great stream as always. Start to Dubravka, Petrovic, Goodmanson, and Van de Ven. It would be Dubravka and Goodmanson. They are facing each other, but could it be 0-0? I wouldn't rule it out. I've gone for 1-0 leads, but that's a difficult game to predict. I think it will be low scoring, though. I'd probably kind of fancy that and hone in on that sort of thing. Oh, thank you, Philippus. I wasn't aware that my name is Ryan. I personally think that Enzo doesn't start because of that knee injury. Maybe you're replying to someone else, to be fair, and I'm just being a twat. I still think Enzo Fernandez will start, to be fair. It was always the plan for him not to play the second game for Argentina against Puerto Rico, but it was an injury. That's what Enzo Maresca said, and the Argentinian national team also confirmed that. I thought Strand Larsen won't play. Well, he might not play, to be fair. It's not guarantee. I mean, Vitor Pereira's comments weren't particularly great. So it could be Tolu up front for Strand Larsen. That's always quite difficult to predict nowadays with the Norwegians struggling for fitness. So that could be a change in that Wolves starting 11. Dylan, hi. Would you start Dubravka over Pope? Yes. Would you bench Senesi over Rodon and Estev? Thank you so much. I like Senesi a lot, and in most game weeks I just start him, but because I have confidence, I can only speak for myself, in Burnley Leeds being low scoring, I'd probably chance it on those defenders and, yeah, benching Senesi, but it is quite risky. I think Isak will start. It's not a guarantee, though. It could be Ekitike starting here, then Isak in the Champions League. So rotation will happen there. That's why I'd rather avoid that situation entirely. Osama says Minter, Reinders, and Anderson versus Munoz and Dewsbury Hall on Wildcard. Yeah, if that's Joachim Anderson against Munoz... Oh, okay, it's the duo question. I'm not a big fan of Joachim Anderson. And Elliot Anderson either, to be fair. I think from all those duos, I'd probably go for Munoz and Dewsbury Hall, and you might even want to consider Xhaka. Xavi to Gordon or save my free transfer. I don't mind Gordon, I just don't think he's a great choice. And personally, I think Nick Voltemade is the best Newcastle attacker. In the midfield, you've got Ismail Assar, Semenyo, Ndai, Saka. All these players I've mentioned in recent videos. I would sell Xavi Simons, but I'm not sure about Gordon. That's my kind of qualm about it. If it's Ismail Assar, I'd say, yeah, do it now. Would you do Bruno to Saka for a -4? Probably not for a -4. If I had enough money, I'd probably pull the trigger now and just get Saka, I will admit, but not for a -4. Yeah, Moltemade or Gyökeres. So if you can get Saka in the midfield and Voltemade up front, I'd recommend that. So it is team dependent as well. If Saka is already in your team or it doesn't really impact your ability to get him, I think in isolation, without thinking about the funds, it's Gyökeres. So it just depends on your kind of funds, the amount of transfers you got, and how that impacts future moves. So that all comes into play with these questions, but yeah, I can just imagine Voltemade and Saka as a duo. I really like that, to be fair. Who's the better pick for the wild card? I'd probably go for Bowen right now as a short to medium term punt. Who do I sell Murillo for? Gay, Senesi, or Lacroix? They're all solid. Probably Senesi. Start Vicario or Dubravka? Dubravka. Start Minter or Reinders? It's a close one. Probably Minter. Hi Dylan, start Rodon, Mbuma or Indai? Indai. Eze or Gakpo? I'd start Gakpo this week. Azar Khan says, should I bench boost with Dubravka, Xhaka, Alderete and Anthony? You do have 2 injury doubts in there. I think both of them will start, but there is a risk attached to it. If it was me, I'd probably risk it and pull the trigger, but it's never nice playing a chip and seeing 2 of the players involved having a yellow flag, I'll be honest with you. Paul John says, I'm playing my bench boost, but I have Cunha in my team. Should I use a sub to maximize possible returns as you don't think he will start? Yeah, I'd make a transfer there. Yeah, I would. Now, I'm not ruling it out. Cunha could still start. He is one of United's best attackers, but I think Mason Mount would be preferred in that left forward position because of his work rate and his, I think his kind of resourcefulness as a tactical, well, just in terms of tactics. I think Amram really trusts Mason Mount and he's going to be a good choice for them in big games like this. He was also quite decent against Arsenal in Game Week 1. Start Sanchez or Dubravka? I've currently got Dubravka. I'll put a poll out since this has been asked quite a lot and people are still asking it, so I understand. Let's put this poll out now. Start one of these goalkeepers. Let's put Sanchez and Dubravka. So some of your questions might have been answered earlier when I was going through different screens and, you know, analyzing data, predicted lineups and stuff like that. Make sure to rewind and go back to the live section. Drop a like on this video, subscribe. Let's get to 200 likes by the end of the stream and close in on 37,000 subscribers. There is a possibility I do a reaction stream tonight. And then, yeah, after that, the full focus will be on UCL Fantasy for Matchday 3. That is going to be the plan. Let's go through the other questions. Calvert-Lewin, what about him? I'm not a big fan. If you want to, you know, tear your hair out about him, go for it. I mean, he's a budget forward after all, but he's not someone I'd want to start week in, week out. Fernandes to Saka and Gyökeres to Bowen. I like Saka and Bowen a lot, but I'm a bit uneasy about selling Gyökeres. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. If it's for free, I'd probably say yes, but Gyökeres is a hold. Hi Dylan, start Sarr, Reinders or Morgan Rogers? Reinders. I'm not a big fan of Sarr from Spurs, not really much more for me to say. The only Sarr I'd recommend is Ismaila Sarr. Grandadilan, hold Salah or Saka in? Hold Salah. Great record against Man United. Don't sell Salah. Not for the next week or so, I'd say. Sarr or Caicedo? Ismaila Sarr. What do you think of Cullen this match day? Well, he's quite decent for DEFCON. And he's got the odd goal in him. Not too many. A bit like Caicedo, probably to an even lesser extent. But yeah, I think 3-4 points is probably what you're looking at. Would you play bench boost with Petrovic, Senesi, Calafiori and Enzo? I probably would, yeah. I mean, if it was me, I'd have at least one of those Palace defenders on the bench and having Enzo start, so the bench looks different, but ultimately it's the same thing. I'd bench boost. Bowen is not ignored, mate, and ultimately I bought Voltemada last week for Chris Wood because I couldn't afford Bowen with only one free transfer, and I felt like I had to get rid of Chris Wood. I've never ignored Bowen. He's on the thumbnail of my bloody wildcard video, so he's definitely not ignored. Should I do Bruno to Enzo next week as I'm on bench boost? Yeah, and with Enzo being a doubt, even though I think he'll start, it does put people off from buying him, so I understand that perspective. Yeah, probably. I'd probably do it next week, and by that time Enzo will definitely be in that starting 11, unless there's a complication. Wildcard, so Pope, Dubravka in goal, Gabriel, Senesi, Timber, Van der Ven, Gay, Semenyo and Dye, Reinders, Rice, Kudus, Joao Pedro, Haaland, Bowen. Yeah, good wildcard squad, but just a few things. I'm not entirely sure about doubling up on Spurs with their fixtures. So at least one of Van der Ven or Kudus, in my opinion, would be a sell. And as for Reinders, I prefer Caicedo and maybe even Xhaka. But if you're still bullish on Reinders, fair enough. Rice is interesting. I still think he could be benched in one of the next few Premier League games. And we've seen that happen already in this season. But yeah, overall, those are my only concerns, I think. The rest looks really good. Yeah, not many complaints from me, but I think double Spurs is not what I'd do on the wildcard anyway. What's your thoughts of having Alderete and Mukiele together? I think 1's enough. I think 2 is probably a bit too much. Is bench boost 10 looking good? Joshua King. Well, it depends on your squad, your setup, and, you know, how the fixtures look like. So for everyone watching who still has the bench boost, use FPL.team and visualize future game weeks and see, you know, what transfers you could make to optimize your bench boost. And if maybe you don't need to make any and you already have a solid 50-man squad with the fixtures in mind. But yeah, Alderete and Mukiele, I think 1's enough. LFC fan says, hi Dylan, just one question. I'm thinking of bench boosting and I've got Ride, Dubravka, Stev, Borro, Mukiele, Gabriel, Munoz, Salah, Semenyo, Caicedo, Sarr, Reinders, Voltemada, Gyökeres, Joao Pedro, and 1.9 in the bank. Okay, so you're thinking of bench boost. Yeah, I can see that. That is a very solid bench. I'd do it. Yeah. Goncilo, what does that mean? It's not spelled like that. So if you had an O before the C, so Conocido, that would be conocido, so like known. But then there was another word, coincido. But yeah, concido is not really a word. I just was making fun of the spelling there. Who do I sell Murillo for? Gay, Senesi, or Lacroix? I think I covered this earlier, mate. I said Senesi. Who's the better pick for the wild card? Both are solid. Slight preference for Bowen. What was your news source for injuries and who trained? Well, I check what the managers say in the press conferences, and then sometimes you get news on Twitter from reliable journalists and sources, so that's where I mainly get my information from. I also check different predicted lineups and, you know, newspapers and articles, and that's where I compile everything and do it for my videos. Anachronism says Gyökeres and Bruno to Saka, and which striker? Once again, I don't think Gyökeres is a sell, so the only kind of reason I maybe see this working is if you've already got 3 Arsenal players, and to get Saka you need to sell Gyökeres. But even then, I don't think you should sell Gyökeres, personally. I think he's going to score goals. If you really want to do it, Bruno to Saka and Gyökeres too, I'd say Bowen. There you go. Beverly Hills says, hey Dylan, Mateto, Gyökeres. Sanchez or Dubravka? I prefer Dubravka just about, and the poll kind of reflects how I'm feeling. It's almost 50-50. And Hartman or Goodmanson? I'd go for Goodmanson. So Dubravka and Goodmanson. There you go. You're covering Burnley and Leeds defensively. Start Minter or Reinders. Start Dubravka or Vicario. Yeah, Minter and Dubravka. Would you play bench boost of Petrovic? Yeah, I covered this earlier, mate. Okay, a lot of these have been spammed, I can't lie. So I'm just going to go to the new ones. NASA says on wildcard with no Liverpool players, should I consider Gakpo or Isak? Not really keen on either, but probably Gakpo. Now, we could even see Isak and Ekitike start together, and then someone like Gakpo drop to the bench. I wouldn't rule that out, but I think Gakpo would be the preference. Salah, as I've mentioned multiple times, is a clear hold for those that have him. I wish I had him this week, actually, against Man United, but I'm not going to buy him now, because I'd have to basically undo my team or wildcard, and it just doesn't make any sense. Maybe even play the free hit. My mids are Saka, Semenyo, Sarr, Enzo, Reinders. Yeah, that's fair enough, but I don't really see a need to get a Liverpool midfielder or attacker. I think you just keep what you've got, actually. How worried should we be with Caicedo and Senesi? Well, Senesi was subbed off early in Game Week 7. I mean, I say early, 78 minutes. And he arrived late from Argentina. So on Thursday, he got back to England. I think he trained a little bit. I still think he's going to start, though. And I would not be concerned about him playing less than 60 minutes, for example. So he should be fine from that perspective. Kupsi Kup says, hey Dylan, good morning. I have free transfers and can do Bruno to Salah, Foden to Sarr, and Gyökeres to DCL for free. Should I do it? I mean, they're good transfers on paper until I see Gyökeres to DCL. That's the one that I'm like, ugh, that's disgusting. But maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on that. It is a differential play to buy Salah this week. I do like that. And I think Sarr's a great long-term option. But I'll be honest with you, I'd probably keep what you've got. Maybe do something like Bruno to Saka or Ismaila Sarr. But yeah, I just don't like the Gyökeres to DCL move. And even Foden this week could be a hold. And over the coming weeks, you could then sell and then get those midfielders I've been talking about recently. But if you're still really bullish on it, back your gut. I just don't like DCL as an option. If I already have Saka and Calafiori, would you go for Gyökeres 2 over Joao Pedro? My preference is a double Arsenal defence, so it'd be Gabriel or Raya in goal. But yeah, Gyökeres is still fine. He's more of a purchase than a sell. Once again, Simon, it's impossible for me to answer this question definitively without knowing your team and the context, because I could just say yeah, and then it turns out to be the wrong decision. Over the last couple of weeks and since the beginning of the season, I've talked about Game Week 8 or 13 as 2 wildcard opportunities and windows. So if you feel like you need to make a lot of transfers or you're going to upgrade your team significantly, wildcard now. If you're a bit unsure about it, just save the wildcard. It's as simple as that. Adamak says, hi mate, Mbuma to Eze and Pedro Porro to either Timber or Gabriel for a -4. As much as I like Arsenal defenders, I would not sell Porro for a hit this week. So I think Mbuma to Eze is probably enough. I'm not a massive fan of Eze compared to Ismail Assar, Saka and the other midfielders I discussed, but he's a decent differential, I think. So you can't go wrong too much, in my opinion. Yeah, it's probably Mbuma to Eze first. Welcome to Will. Bench boost for me this week, slightly relying on Burnley, Sunderland clean sheets, so it might be ropey. Yeah, when you're relying on newly promoted clubs to keep clean sheets, it can be a bit of a weird situation, but on paper, it still looks quite promising, and I think it could work out for a lot of people. Not for me, though. Anyone get any Chelsea news? Please give a shout. Yes, that would definitely be appreciated. Start Senesi or Ndai? Ndai. Carlos Blanco dice, tengo a Watkins y quiero venderlo. Bowen o Voltemada. Para mí, Bowen. West Ham tiene los mejores partidos hasta la jornada 13. Los otros dos son Joao Pedro y Haaland. Sí, para mí está bien eso. Así que me gusta mucho Voltemada. Lo compré en la jornada 7, pero si tengo que comprar un delantero ahora, sería Jared Bowen. Salah to Saka, Evanussen to Bowen. Do I pull? Don't sell Salah this week. That's all I'm going to say. I like Bowen a lot. But if you could do something like Evanussen to Voltemada this week, I'd rather do that for free. Don't sell Salah against Man United, is my opinion. Should I play Reinders or Bruno? I'm going for Bruno. I have Caicedo, thinking of getting Enzo instead. I'm going for a bench boost. I'm not so sure about that, because you're going from one Chelsea midfielder to another, and they're both injury doubts. I mean, that could go one of two ways, really. So unless you're kind of bullish on Caicedo, you know, being rested or benched and Enzo starting, and I think most people would have the different opinions of that, I'm just not really sure. I'd keep what you have. No news on Enzo, to be fair, Alex. Nothing from the last, since the press conference yesterday. Bojan says Anderson and Dye, Bruno and Gyökeres to Gay, Enzo, Saka, Voltemada. Jesus, fucking hell. What the fuck was that? I'm not sure about that. I do like the players we're bringing in. If Enzo's fit, great midfielder to buy. Saka and Voltemada, solid. Mark Gay is decent, but yeah. My problem is selling in Dye and Gyökeres, actually. I do like them long term, but ultimately I'd say yes. What I'd probably say, though, is keep Ndai for now and don't buy Enzo and do the rest of the transfers. I think that's what I'd recommend. I still think Gyökeres is a holder. Yeah, I don't know how many times I need to say it. I've got no information on Enzo Fernandez. I wish I had something. But yeah, I mean, this guy's saying this. I don't know. I'll have to double check this myself. Hey, Dylan, start Senesi or Rodon and Caicedo or Stack. I'd go for Rodon and Caicedo this week. And normally I'd say Senesi, but I think it's a little bit different this time around. Rai says Bruno to Saka. Also, is it too late to get in Semenyo now? Yeah, Bruno to Saka, yes. With Semenyo, I talked about this in my recent podcast. There is a debate to just kind of let it go. But with the consistency he's showing, I'd still bring him in personally and find differentials elsewhere. Ismail Assar is one of them, and you can complement the midfield that way. So I'd still buy Semenyo. Is it a bit too late? Probably, but he is still the best midfielder in FPL right now. So you don't want to miss that. Hello, Dylan. Raya or Dubravka? Probably Raya, just because Arsenal are solid defensively. But yeah, I'm going for Dubravka this week over Sanchez. If you do have an Arsenal defender, there's certainly a debate to just kind of diversify your defense and then go for Dubravka, but I'm going to say Raya. Tefer says, hey Dylan, good to have you back after the break. Bench 2 out of Van der Ven, Tarkowski, Alderete and Reinders. Not easy, but I'm going to say Tarkowski and Van der Ven on the bench. Bench Rodon or Thiago? I'd bench Rodon. I have the funds for Gyökeres, but not Saka and Voltemada. I have an interesting question. If I play Reinildo and Reinders is first in my subs, will I get his points or the first defenders? That depends on your formation. So if you've got Renildo in your starting 11 and you've got a back 3, he'll be replaced by a defender, not Reinders. If you have a back 4 or 5 and Reinders is on your bench, he will come on. Play Ndai or Reinders? Yeah, I'm going for Ndai at the moment. And that's another poll I'm going to put out very soon. Dubravka is winning this poll between him and Sanchez. Once it gets to 200 votes, I'll end it and then start another one. Lacroix or Konsa? Lacroix. Voltemada or Sarr? Sarr. Start Anthony or Ndai? It's a close one. Probably Anthony. Would you bench boost with Anthony and Alderete, Dubravka, Van der Ven? I would, but you've got 2 injury doubts there, so it's still risky. It's up to you if you want to play the odds that way. I'm backing both of them to start, but it's never nice to see that. Yeah, Lavia is fit. He could start as well, but he's had so many injury problems recently. It's difficult to kind of have that confidence in him. Dylan, should either one of Bruno or Ndai start over those defenders? Goodmanson, Senesi, Van der Ven, Gabriel. Yeah, I think so. Over Van der Ven and Senesi, arguably. I also have Gay on the bench. Yeah, Van der Ven's the one I drop out from those you've got starting. Do you think Matoma plays? Yes, but I'm not entirely sure about it. Free hit is interesting. I'm not a big fan of it this week, but everyone's situation is different. I'd go for 1 or 2 Arsenal defenders. Maybe a City option like Gvardiol. After that, it's quite difficult. You might be looking at a Palace or Bournemouth player, but I think both of them will score. You might even want to go for like a Liverpool option, especially if you back a clean sheet against United, but yeah, it's definitely going to be one of Gabriel Timber, maybe even both, and someone like Gvardiol. Those would be my favourites. Voltemada or Bowen to Haaland. Yeah, if I had to sell one of them, it's probably Voltemada, but still a decent option. Best 5-point family midfielder with bench boost 9 in mind. You might be looking at a Leeds midfielder there, like Okafor. I, Dylan, start in Ndai or Taylor. In Ndai. Dylan, Foden to Eze, can't reach Saka. I just keep Foden for now and then buy Saka next week, but that's just my opinion. Start Senesi or Ndoi. So if that's the Forest Ndoi, I would start Senesi. Captain Saka or Haaland? Haaland. Would you play bench boost with Petrovic, Senesi, Calafiori and Enzo? This seems like the exact same question I got earlier. I'm not sure if the profile picture changed, but I said yes. And like I mentioned before, I wouldn't start both Palace defenders anyway, but who cares? It's the same thing. Pope or Dubravka, who is more likely to keep clean sheet? Dubravka. So that answers this question as well, Simon, which I did cover before, but it is what it is. Ashwin says, I wildcarded in Gameweek with Alderete, Anthony, Foster for Gameweek bench boost, but all of them got flagged. Foster to Bowen, Calafiori to Diouf, and then Ndai to Longstaff. Free transfers and bench boost. Calafiori to Gabriel is an upgrade I wanted. Yeah, I think Gabriel is an upgrade. I agree with you on that, but Calafiori should start this weekend, and he's not like a sell right now. Interesting. Yeah. The transfer I'm least sure about is Ndai to Longstaff, but the others look good. Enzo or Caicedo? I'd probably say Enzo, long term, if you have enough money. In my wildcard squad, I had Caicedo, but that's because at Enzo's price, I had Ismail Assar and different players, so it can vary, of course. Twisted Parky says, transfer a role for 2, and upgrade a defender mid, and change Salah next week. Yeah, you got a decent squad for this week. I'd probably roll. I think roll. And that's not a bad bench to bench boost if you have that chip already in play. Tosin could start against Forest. Yeah, I'd probably roll. If you do bench boost this week, there is the possibility to optimize it slightly. So maybe sell King, for example, and do something like that. It might require downgrade elsewhere, but ultimately I'd just say roll. Leeds have Paul Wingers today due to injury, so Dubravka is a shout from the 2. Yeah, I need to check with the Okafor one because he is being labelled as a doubt. I do like him the most of these Leeds midfielders. So, yeah, he is yellow flag now with a thigh injury. That would be a big shame for Leeds United, that's for sure. But, yeah, I just hope Burnley keep a clean sheet. and I'm going to go for Dubravka. So, he has got 58% of the votes. Let me end that one. And my next poll is going to be about benching one of these players. So, bear with me for a few seconds. So, very soon I'm going to go through the member questions and stuff like that first. So, we'll go in that order, and then, yeah, I'll go through the other questions as well in order of submission. Okay. So let's put Reinders in die. Fernandez and Voltemada, I guess. I don't think I'm going to bench Voltemada anyway. So yes, between those players, I'm going to keep it simple. So yeah, one of Reinders and Die Fernandez on the bench. It would be very interesting to see your thoughts. Rye, you did ask this question earlier, mate. I answered it. Arne Slot in his press conference yesterday said that he had a few training sessions and that he's quite confident about him starting. I can get the exact quote for you if you want, but yeah, I need to get that link up with all the press conferences again. Roy says Esteve, Van der Ven, Richard, Senesi and Alderete start free. I would start Alderete, Esteve and probably Senesi. Have Sanchez and Dubravka goalkeeper. How do I arrange? Well, because you've got these two goalkeepers, another thing you could do is start Dubravka, bench Esteve, and then go for a different defender like Richards. That could also work because he's got DEFCON potential. I wouldn't mind that so much, but I think in your situation, I'd go for Sanchez in goal and have Esteve to cover Burnley defensively. Yeah, I'm going to have a look at that, Will, and if so, there could be another change to my predicted lineup, so thank you very much. Kudus or Sarr? If that's Ismaila Sarr, he's my favourite long-term, so I'm just going to say Ismaila Sarr. Alderete or Van der Ven? Alderete. Hello, Dylan. I'm scared next week of Chelsea assets. I wouldn't be scared of Chelsea assets, to be honest, but fair enough. They got good fixtures. Is it worth doing Gyökeres/Isak plus Reinders to Joao Pedro and Enzo next week? I do like Reinders to Enzo. I'd rather sell Isak and keep Gyökeres, though, and then buy Joao Pedro that way. But he is quite template, of course. Risk a bench boost with Foster, Burnley, and Alderete doubts. No funds to move. If it was me, yes, and that's because I think both of them will start. I can't guarantee it, though, so you got to just back your gut on that one. Okay, so yeah, with Okafor, I didn't see the latest updates. I'm going to have a look. But let me just go through some member questions as well. Let's see who could start for Leeds United in the kickoff today at 3 PM. Okay, yeah, so it looks like yeah, Okafor is ruled out, it looks like, which is a shame. He was my favourite Leeds midfielder. Would have been quite handy for Game Week 9. Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that later on. But yeah. I mean, some of these headlines are saying he's out, but then it says there that he's struggling or that, you know, he's not definitively ruled out. So kind of conflicting information there with these articles. Okay, yeah. I think, what was it? Fabrizio Romano said it yesterday. He'll be out for 7 to 10 days with an injury. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I need to reevaluate that Leeds predicted 11. So let's see what we can get. And I'm also having a look at Chelsea news, since a lot of people are interested in that. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to adjust the Leeds predicted lineup very soon. And then we'll see how I do in terms of all the predictions. But let's whiz through the questions. Like I said, member questions will be gone through first. Drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get this stream to 200 overall, and let's close in on 37,000 subscribers. Let's see what else we've got. Okay. Yeah, Diogo says, Paulson Esteval. Yeah, for me, not a big fan of him. I did cover it. I think you were not a member when I covered the question. At least the message was sent when you, just before you were gifted it. He scored the winner against Liverpool. He's a very exciting young talent, but in terms of Chelsea midfielders, it's Caicedo or Enzo. That's pretty much my kind of synopsis of it. Thank you, John Paul. Doing great work as usual, Dylan. Do kindly pick 2 to start from Rodon, Van der Ven, Reinders and Minter. I'd probably just go for Minter and Reinders if you can. Yeah. If you had to pick one defender from those, it'd be Rodon, but yeah, Reinders and Minter for me. As covered before, Cullen, it was to somebody else. I think Cullen is decent for DEFCON. I think he'll probably get 3-4 points. And ever since Florentino Luis joined the club, both him and Cullen have been getting DEFCON in every single game. Thank you, Punjabi, as he says, drop a like on the video. Going for Bruno to Saka this week. Yeah, seems quite easy to do. If I had enough money, I'd probably do it myself. Thank you very much, Adamak. I appreciate it. Reinders are in die. I'm starting in die right now, and you can also see the poll. Most people are benching or suggest benching Reinders. Sorry. In die. Fucking hell. Hey, Dylan, start Rodon or Senesi and Caicedo stack. I think I covered this, but yeah, Rodon and Caicedo. Play Tarkovsky or Konsa. Tarkovsky. Without Grealish, I think Everton a bit more likely to park the bus. Yeah, but Ndai's still on penalties, so. I think Konate will start tomorrow. It just depends if he's fit enough, and we don't know that information, but yeah, I think he would have the nod over Gomez. Long-term goalkeepers except Ryan Sanchez, Nick Pope. This week, I'd start Dubravka. I think Alderete will start, Keith, yeah. Doku or Minter? Minter. Start Rodon or Van der Ven. It'll be Rodon. Mateta or Gyökeres? Gyökeres. Play Donnarumma or Dubravka, says Michael. Donnarumma. Do you think Caicedo's going to start? What is this? Casados? That's another Spanish word. That means married. Yes, I think Caicedo will start. I'll probably go through my predicted lineups again. Dewsbury Hall or Xhaka on Wildcard. Xhaka. Captain Salah or Haaland. Haaland for me. I did show the captaincy list earlier. I'll probably go through it one more time. I don't really use Facebook, but I'm not even sure what to say about that. That'd be surprising. Rodon or Chalobah, who to start? Probably Rodon. Kudus or Sarr? Alderete or Van der Ven? If it's Ismail Sarr, I'd start him and Alderete. I think I covered this as well earlier. Would you play bench boost with Petrovic? Oh my god, yeah, forget it. Would you keep Foden and Mbeumo? I'd keep Foden this week, sell Mbeumo now, and by Gameweek 9 or 10, I'd sell Foden as well. But yeah, buying San Semenyo, it's a massive upgrade long term for sure. Start Borro or Goodmanson? Probably Borro still. Yeah, I think I'd go for Borro here. Does Richarlison start? He was in my lineups video yesterday, but I have a sneaky feeling Tell could get into that lineup, which I covered earlier in this stream. If Enzo's not fit enough, Lavia fit to replace him. Yeah, but then who would play attacking midfield? Would it be Buonanotte or would it be Esteval? I mean, yeah, Chelsea, for all the money they spent, they still got some teething issues with their squad depth. FPL Diamond says, like, share, subscribe, support your quality channel as you continue to get brilliant content on a consistent basis. Thank you very much. I kindly appreciate that. Maria R says, hi Dylan, hope you're well. Not sure who to put on out of Minter or Stack. I'd start Minter. Caicedo or Sarr? Ismail Sarr. Start Vicario or Dubravka. Start Gay or Senesi. Slight preference for Senesi. On bench boost with Isak captain. No risk, no reward, right? I mean, you're a United fan, aren't you? That's interesting. I think bench boost looks appealing this week and in 9. Isak is in my top 10 captaincy options, but yeah, he's not my favourite. Welcome, Aiden. Bruno or Paqueta? Probably Paqueta this week. Payman Armin says, which 2 to start? Virgil, Senesi, Diouf, Richards, thank you. Yeah, I would start Senesi and Virgil van Dijk. Bowen against Voltemada. Bowen. Would you bench DCL or Alderete? Probably Alderete, I guess. I'm not a big fan of Calvert-Lewin, though. His ceiling is higher this week, in my opinion. That's the only reason I'm going for him. Start 2, it would be Enzo and Caicedo. Yep. Enzo, Bowen, Richards and Reinders, 2 to start. Enzo and Bowen. Bowen should not be in this benching dilemma whatsoever. Thank you, Paredes, for being a member for 6 months. Senesi era coming to an end. I still think it'll tick along nicely with DEFCON. The fixtures are okay. So will his points and returns dry up a little bit? Yes, but he's still going to be one of the best defenders at his price point. Your prediction for most points this week? Well, one of Haaland or Salah. If I had to go for something a little bit, kind of left field, it'd be Salah to be the highest scoring player this week. Thank you, Alex. Hope you are well too. Dylan, news on X is showing Caicedo starting his 50%. He had a late fitness test. Thank you. If you got a link, drop it. It would be kindly appreciated because, yeah, it's kind of difficult to keep track on Twitter. The search function is kind of shit, to be honest. And, yeah, I haven't seen anything on Chelsea when I was searching. Yeah, I haven't seen it. So yeah, if anyone has any links for the Chelsea news, drop them in the live chat and we'll go through them at the same time. The thing is with Tosin, he's not going to start week in, week out. He's got a few injury problems. And yeah, with Chelsea having a lot of fixtures anyway, I think they'll rotate. You've got Fofana in there, you've got Achimpong, Chalobah. So with Tosin, he offers decent value, but not great value. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I would understand that. Okafor was kind of my favourite Leeds attacker. I think he would be a massive blow. That might even change my prediction because I was already conflicted about it. I was expecting a 1-0 either way, maybe even 0-0. Casado's the DEFCON beast, yeah. Apparently might not even start, we'll see. Start Stack or Reinders? Reinders. Would you get Timber or Saliba? Timber. Just bear in mind that Ben White is still available. Yeah, we're very close to locking in. Now it's going to be, what, 10 minutes? Enzo to start? Yes, I believe so. Bowen or Joao Pedro? For this week, it's Bowen. I like both of them, to be fair, but yeah, this week, Bowen. Sa or Paqueta? Sa. Última oportunidad para Wood. Para mí es muy fácil venderlo. Y es posible que no va a empezar el partido. Es posible que va a ser Igor Jesús. Así que para mí Chris Wood es un sell. Es mejor venderlo. Hey Dylan, start Gakpo or Bruno? Gakpo. Start Van der Ven or Senesi? Senesi. So that answers this question as well. Could Van Dijk to Gabriel be worth it? Yes. Hey Dylan, Munoz and Burn versus Gabriel Richards. I like both of them, but it would be Gabriel and Richards, in my opinion. I'd rather double up on Arsenal defensively than Newcastle. Would you start Kudus or Joao Pedro and Diouf or Truffert or Van der Ven? Joao Pedro, and I would probably go for Diouf, actually. I would captain Haaland. And yes, his record against Brentford is very good. I wish I had Bowen this week, but it's still Haaland for me. Hi Dylan, would you start Senesi or Borro and Ndai or Stack? Borro and Ndai. Enzo spotted training, but not sure if he'll play. Well, yeah, there's a lot of doubts with Chelsea right now, but we'll find out very soon. Obviously, we want to know before the deadline. If there is a link, I'll go through it and share it with everyone. Hey, Dylan, I have Enzo, Joao Pedro, and Van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk, yeah. Considering swapping out Van Dijk and one of the two to bring in Saka. The thing is, long-term, you might want these two Chelsea players. That's the only concern, but yeah, if it helps you bring in Saka, I can see the appeal, that's for sure. And as good as Van Dijk is, I think going to Gabriel is probably an upgrade, but then that doesn't really help you get Saka in the first place. I did cover this question earlier, mate. I don't know how many times you've got to spam it. I think Konate will start. If he's fit, he's going to play. We don't know if he's fit. It's just a guess. Jesus. Let me go to this as well. Thank you for the link here. Oh, it's Grok, though. Yeah, I'm not so sure about Grok. I wouldn't really be basing transfer decisions yet, or if a player's going to start or not on Grok, but I appreciate the link. Start Pope or Dubravka? Dubravka. Timber, Gabriel, Alderete, Senesi, Michele, start free, bench order. Yeah, Gabriel, probably Timber as well, and I'd start Senesi with Mukiele first on the bench, Alderete second. Well, if he continues this way, Ruler, then yes, Semenyo would definitely be a keep, but there will be a drop-off. I don't expect him to get 18 points again and, you know, to be getting these massive hauls on a consistent basis, but yeah, I think at least until the second half of the season, he's a keep for now. Start Senesi or Rodon. Rodon. No Enzo news, mate. Still the same thing. If there was any news, I'd be reporting it, to be honest, but I haven't seen any, at least. I'm rolling the transfers this week. Could consider Mateta to Voltemada, and I don't know who to get rid of Anderson for. Well, at a similar price tag, you've got Xhaka, Caicedo, who is an injured out. Reinders is still decent, but he's not someone I'd be buying in now. He's more of a sell, in my opinion. Minter would be quite appealing to me, actually. Start Minter or Senesi. Minter. You can see in my starting 11, I've talked about it all week, really. I have a slight preference for Dubravka. You think both Sarr and Semenyo score? Not necessarily, but they've got the best chance from their respective teams. Bench 1, Munoz, Chalobah, Anderson, Senesi. If that's Joachim Anderson, I'd bench him, yeah. And to be fair, Ali Anderson as well. So I'd start the others. Reyners to Eze or wait till next week to get Saka? Wait until next week. Caicedo or Ndai start? Ndai. Swap Sarr for Reinders this week or next week? Also, I'm guessing you're bringing in Sarr. The thing is, Ismaila Sarr plays Arsenal next week. I'd either do it now or in Game Week 10, but not in Game Week 9 on paper. Would you start Xavi Simons or Reinders? Reinders. Ekatike or Reinders to start? In my predicted 11, I've got Isak. Ekatike could still come off the bench and score, but yeah, it's going to be Reinders. Sesko's a good cover for United next fixtures or occupying a spot on the attack. He's in good form, but I still prefer Voltemada, Bowen, Joao Pedro, Gyökeres, Erling Haaland, and Mateta, so it's a no for me. Yeah, we're very close. Which two to bench? Stack, Goodmanson, Van der Ven, Xavi Simons, Enzo, Gay, Senesi, Borro. I would bench Van der Ven and possibly Stack. Start 2, Lacroix, Senesi, and Dye. I would bench... I mean, Lacroix has DEFCON potential as well, not to the same level as Senesi. I would bench Lacroix and start in Dye with Senesi. Sanchez, Reinders, Richards, and Anderson. Should I play bench boost? It's a decent bench, to be fair. I don't know about your starting 11, but I'd probably go for it, yeah. Bowen, Voltemada, worth a -4 to get rid of Watkins, or do it next week? Probably do it next week. If you really want to get rid of Watkins, I'd buy Bowen out of the two for a -4. His record against Brentford is very solid. Wood to Bowen for a hit. Bowen would play ahead of Goodmanson. I'd probably do it, yeah. I mean, even in the Watkins situation, I'm tempted to say yes to go to Bowen for a -4, but not Voltemada. Not in my opinion. Hilal says, hello, Dylan. Kindly advise, I'm on Wildcard. Looks solid. Not many complaints from me, just not a big fan of Calvert-Lewin, really. But with everyone else, I understand the picks, and I think they're very reasonable, to say the least. Yep, looks good. Looks really good, but I would consider Calvert-Lewin. Now, at that price point, there isn't really much to go to. Isidore, maybe. Lau Foster's an injured out. So, yeah, that's... I understand why you've gone for him. Ultimately, that's a solid wildcard squad. Not many complaints, and if you want to go even more differential, I'd recommend Bowen. Yeah, I'd recommend Bowen. And ideally, I would have someone like Bowen instead of Calvert-Lewin, but then that would require a downgrade elsewhere, which is where some problems could arise. So, yeah. Let me know how much money you've got in the bank. But Bowen is someone I'd recommend on the wildcard. Start Esteve or Anderson. Estev. Start Xavi Simons or Van de Ven. Xavi Simons. Who to start? Choose only 3. Saliba, Munoz, and probably Romero. Yeah, just bench. I'd say bench Gay. Well, it's possible. I mean, Salah's done it in the past, hasn't he? Anthony and Enzo. I think both will start. It's just my opinion. Thank you. Good luck, says Stan. Likewise. Grockling so wild. He done Salah to Saka and Gyökeres leaves me 1.5 for Gabriel next week. Yeah, no, selling Salah this week makes no sense whatsoever. I actually think Salah's a better option than Saka for the next 2 free game weeks. But obviously there's a big difference in price. You can do a lot of the extra money, but selling Salah doesn't make sense. Thank you very much, Gary. And as he says, drop a like and subscribe. Bench boost active, here we go. Best of luck, guys. Yes, all the best, Punjabi. A lot of bench boosts are flying around. Indai is the most popular player to bench in this poll, but he's currently starting for me. With Rangers, I just hate the guy. He's probably going to score. Whoever I bench between Rangers and Indai will probably end up hauling. I kind of know that the gig by now. But yeah. There is a chance, and I really hope Kovacic does start for City and that Rangers is on the bench. That would be quite nice, actually, but maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic. Okay. Yeah, Dubravka's starting for me. You can see the answer. I think Enzo will play. I can't guarantee it. Goodmanson or Doku? Well, Doku has the highest ceiling. I would go for him. Yeah, I think Tosin will start. That was covered earlier. That was a change from yesterday's video, the predicted lineups. Okay, there is a super chat here from Ahmad. You seem to really prefer starting Indai. Why? He's on penalties. Rangers is really inconsistent. There is also a chance Kovacic starts, which was alluded to by Pep Guardiola in yesterday's press conference. So that means maybe one of Nico Gonzalez, Bernardo Silva, or Rangers is benched. And ultimately, with Villarreal and Aston Villa away in the next week, it would not surprise me to see Rangers benched, and it's kind of what I'm hoping for as well, to be fair. But I also think C have a bit of a weakness on the right-hand side, and Indai should play on the left to kind of tackle that. And Indai has scored at the Etihad before in a 1-1 draw. So, look, I don't think Indai will get a massive return, but he could get a goal, 7-8 points, and you're kind of happy with that. He's also got DEFCON potential, more so than Rangers, as we've seen this season. Ultimately, yeah, I think now that I've locked it in, Rangers is on my bench, I probably think he's going to score, but it is what it is, right? I still back Rangers. Sorry, I back Indai to do something, and fuck Rangers, to be fair. Will Alderete play? Yeah, I think so. Rangers or Kudus to start? Probably Rangers. Gordon or Voltemada? Voltemada. Thank you, Mina. Hey, Dylan, hope you had a great vacation. Yeah, it was really good. Just a shame about this weather. That's why I got ill. Would you bench boost Dubravka, Stack, Van der Ven, and Goodmanson? Yes, I would. Voltemada or Bowen? As I've said all stream, it would be Bowen. Yeah, we are locked in, as Paredes, Genius Gamer, and Punjabi have said. Welcome, FPL Madness. I hope we don't get too much FPL Madness. I want some points. I am not ready for stress, Easy. I want a bit of peace and tranquility. Enjoy the weekend as well, Lager. Chelsea team news meltdown coming. Yes. I've only got Joao Pedro, so I'll be eating popcorn a little bit later because it's a bit too early right now. Sydney says, I have 3 transfers with 0.9 in the bank and I'm playing my bench boost this week. Should I transfer and die for Enzo or roll? Yeah, sorry I didn't get to this question earlier. I just saw it. I'd probably just keep and die anyway. With Enzo Fernandez being a doubt. I think Enzo Fernandez will start, as I've said all stream, but yeah, it's going to be keep and die. And ultimately, long term, he could be a hold as well. Also, Anish, I didn't see this for some reason. YouTube is very annoying sometimes. Start 4. Yeah, from those players, it's very difficult, to be fair, but it probably would have been Eze on the bench, actually. Yeah. Close call between him and Kudus. So Semenyo, Gakpo, and Sarr would definitely start, and from the others it's tough, but probably Eze on the bench, which might surprise you. We'll see, though. Maybe me answering the question late will be a blessing in disguise, and you choose the right one. Hey, Dylan, start Burn or Xhaka? Not a big fan of either this week, but probably Xhaka. Start Gordon over Minter. That's debatable. Probably Minter for me. Femi says Bruno to Sarr or Bruno and Gyökeres to Saka and Voltemada, 2 free transfers. I prefer the 2 free transfers, to be fair. And if you've got even more money in the bank, I'd recommend Bowen. Bruno to Sarr or Gakpo, long-term is Sarr. And ultimately, you don't need to make that transfer until Game Week 10. Start Van de Ven or Lacroix today. Lacroix. Hi Dylan, I have 2 transfers and I'm thinking to sell Bruno, Richarlison or Cash. Suggest which 2 I should sell and replace with. I think Richarlison and Cash. Even though Bruno Fernandes is the most expensive of the 3. So apparently we can still make transfers. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm not sure what FPL are doing these days, but yeah, Richarlison to one of Voltemada or Bowen. And if you have enough money, I'd go for Bowen. And then Cash to Richards, Senesi. Maybe a cheap defender to fund the other move. Like Rodon, Goodmanson, Mukiele. I still like Alderete. I think he'll start, but that's a bit riskier. Thank you, Majabi. As he says, smash the like button. Let's get the stream to as many likes as possible. We are close to 150, so let's be sure to get to that. And a massive shout out to the new members, Super Chatters, to Paredes and Ahmed for gifting those memberships. And there'll be more gifted in November, so stay tuned for that as well. I was planning to play bench boost, Petrovic, Enzo, Cavallon and Alderete, and I don't know what to do now. Well, I personally would play the bench boost, but there is a risk attached with 2 yellow flag players in there. And it looks like, yeah, we can still make transfers apparently. That's what Punjabi's saying in the chat right now. I'll go to that very soon. Sell or no for Mbumo? Yeah, he's more of a sell, in my opinion, yeah. 30 seconds, lock in now. Yeah, that was obviously from a few minutes ago. Start Eze or... What the hell? Get the question up again. Yeah, or Kudus or Gravenberch. Probably Kudus. But very close between him and Eze. Reynolds take that as a personal mission to upset Dylan. Yeah, just couldn't care less, to be honest. Yeah, I understand that. Son of Thor's. I don't know. With Rangers, obviously, I bigged him up in Game Week 1, but after that, it's been nothing but pain owning him. Good luck as well, Safair. I watched you in Turkey, then Saudi 2 weeks back. Yeah, and then I took a week off, which was nice. And yeah, the UK doing UK things with this bloody weather. Thanks, Dylan. Let's go. Good luck, mate. One with Remainders. I'm guessing Rangers over in Dime on midfield. Let's see who is laughing at 5. I wouldn't be laughing anyway. I just want some points. If they both get 7, it is what it is, right? But I just don't want to see Rangers Hall and Ndai get sent off or something. So yeah, all the best as well, Wei saying. I feel there won't be many clean sheets. I agree. In my scoreline predictions, I've only got like 2 or 3 teams keeping one. I didn't get Tosin in, could not figure who for. Virgil, Senesi, Rodon or Rangers. Yeah, I think that's fine what you've gone for. Salah captain. Nice. He's second in my captaincy list. Yeah, he is second. Think probably should have been for Rangers. Says Twisted Parky. Nah, I would start Rangers to be fair, but what I'm kind of hoping for now is that Kovacic starts over Rangers. That would be brilliant, actually. Eldermis says, I bench boosted with Dubravka, Van de Ven, Reinders and Alderete on the bench, but I have Enzo in the starting 11, who I switched for Kudus last minute on a wildcard. Yeah, long-term Enzo is a better option than Kudus, that makes sense. Thank you to Relax iGamer as well. Best of luck to you as well. I'll let you know how I get on. Yes, if there is a reaction stream tonight, then yeah, you can let me know in terms of your progress. Ndai is on penalties, yeah. He took one against Crystal Palace in that 2-1 win in Game Week 7. Game is on, guys. Make the transfers. Yeah, not anymore, though. Just Parky and a few others are saying we can't make them. Isak Hattrick incoming. Hopefully not. Good luck and lock in, Dylan. Bowen, Xhaka, Richards. Bought this player on wildcard. Plus, I kept Xhaka first sub over Richards and Senesi. Hope it goes well. Yeah, good luck as well. Bowen looks really solid. I like that. Yeah, Xhaka first sub is quite decent, to be fair. Gut tells me Spurs get a clean sheet. Well, I don't want that to happen, but from an FPL perspective, that wouldn't be too shabby with Bodder in my starting 11. Yeah, game is locked indeed. If Isak is a 70-minute man going forward, do you think it's worth having him? Not when you've got Voltemada, Joao Pedro, Gyökeres, and all these players who are getting 80, 90 minutes most of the time. Of course, Erling Haaland goes without saying, and Jean-Philippe Mateta, once he gets going, because he has been poor this season, he would be yet another one. But even if Isak gets 70 minutes in the next 2 Premier League games, he could be benched in the other one. You've got Ekatike knocking on the door, the Champions League as well, so I'd rather avoid that situation. No team leaks as far as I'm aware, but in 8 minutes we'll find out the Chelsea and Forest lineups. I can go through them quickly, and yeah, we can offer our thoughts and opinions on it. Yeah, Punjabi, I think you got a bit too excited, I can't lie. The Chelsea lineup will be out in 8 minutes, so at 11:15 p.m. 11:15 a.m. in the UK. Fuck. Domingo says, my team, 1 transfer left, would you use it? Well, you can't now, but yeah, I think you're fine with what you've got. I'm not a massive fan of Stack, but he's got a good fixture this week. I would have benched Ndai personally. I would have started him over Stack. So yeah, I don't think you need to make a transfer. You're in a good position for Gameweek 8 anyway. People fear Rangers now because Harry... Yeah, well... Like I said with Rangers, I mean, my kind of thought process with that is if I start him, he's going to do shit. If I bench him, he's going to do well. I couldn't care less now. So Nika says, time to think an FPL challenge, the game where I draft players who I don't own to compensate for my FPL team. I do that to a certain extent. I mean, Salah's in there, but ultimately I back him to do well against United. So it's still a similar thought process in terms of transfers and stuff, and I can just buy new players every single week. We need Salah to do something, not just because I captain him, with people selling and Palmer out, game becoming too predictable. Well, yeah, when you have a lot of premiums doing well, it makes the game fun, open, and you've got less of a template, you know, more differentials flying around, and it kind of leads to a domino effect in other areas. If it's only Haaland producing the goods as a template and premium option, it's boring because, yeah, the likes of Salah, very, very poor this season. Cole Palmer and Saka have been injured, and we'll hopefully see them get back to their best very soon, but yeah, it's just not really been good enough from the others. I don't think Enzo will start, says Easy. He'll be on the bench, Lavia's replacement. We'll find out. David says, Joao Pedro or Voltemada? No, I already have Haaland and Bowen as my forwards this week on a wildcard. Long term, it would be Joao Pedro. I do like Voltemada being a differential, and in my wildcard squad, I talked about different sort of structures. So one with Joao Pedro and Bowen, and then another one with Voltemada in there. But yeah, it's still going to be Joao Pedro for me, with Chelsea's fixtures in mind. And also Newcastle. They have some decent fixtures coming up, but 3 of the next 4 are away from home. You've also got Vissa coming back in 8 weeks, it looks like, according to Eddie Howe. So I do like Nick Voltemada. I bought him last week because I had Chris Wood. He was stinking up the gaff. I backed Newcastle to beat Forest 2-0, which I actually got right for once. And I thought Voltemada would score, which he did. Only 6 points, but gained something there on the board. Also some team value. And yeah, I think Nick Voltemada is still a hold long term, but it would be Joao Pedro for me. I bench boosted with Dubravka, Caicedo, Chalobah, and Lucas Perry, is that? No, that's not Lucas Perry. Paqueta, sorry, yeah. That's good. That's a good bench boost. If Caicedo starts, you're in good business there. Yeah, confirmed. Also, app says updating. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go to my scoreline predictions and FPL challenge. Be sure to drop a like if you haven't done so already. We're very close. It's free and supports the channel. Let's get to 150 by the end of the stream. And yeah, let's go through this one more time. So for the early kickoff, I've gone for Nottingham Forest 1, Chelsea 2. Before the injuries for Chelsea, I actually went for a 3-1 win. Brighton 1, Newcastle 1, Burnley 0, Leeds 1. I might need to change that. The same goes for some other predicted lineups like Leeds, with Okafor missing the next week or so. Crystal Palace 1, Bournemouth 1, Man City 2, Everton 0, Sunderland 2, Wolves 1, Fulham 0, Arsenal 1, Tottenham Hotspur 2, Aston Villa 2, Liverpool 3, Man United 1, West Ham 2, Brentford 1. So I'll whiz through the rest in terms of team weakness, the suggested player this week that I'm really backing to do well. So Man United do have a weakness in central areas and also on the right-hand side, and that is where none other than Mohamed Salah could take full advantage. You can see the heat map and also the blue circles indicating the chance conceded by the Red Devils this season. Man City are top of the clean sheet odds with 48%. Arsenal are just behind them. Sunderland, Leeds, Liverpool and Spurs are in the top 6 and Man United are last with only 13% at Anfield this weekend. In terms of the top 10 captains, though, it doesn't look great beyond Haaland and Salah, if I'm being honest. I think Bowen and Saka are reasonable, and Joao Pedro, if he gets 90 minutes and can finally get some shots off, he'd also be a good choice. But with the rest, they've got some relatively tough fixtures like Semenyo and Sarr facing each other. Gyökeres hasn't scored in his last 8 games for club and country, but I think he'll break that drought, possibly today, actually, against Fulham. I am backing him to do well. So for the benefit for those listening on the audio, Sarr is in 10th, Gyökeres is 9th, Isak 8th, Gakpo and Semenyo are just outside the top 5, which includes Joao Pedro, Saka, and in the podium is Bowen, Salah, and Erling Haaland in top spot again. But Salah is so close, you could definitely make a case for him pipping Haaland to top spot with 16 goals in 17 matches against Man United. So what I'm going to do now is keep this on for a little while longer. So, looks like we do have something happening here. Thank you, Punjabi, for putting a link. So I think Caicedo does start based on that, even though it's a gif of Kante. Yeah, okay. Didn't expect that. So, let's have a look. I'm kind of wondering how Leeds will line up without Okafor. Like, could they play Goodmanson a bit further forward? Maybe go for Nemecha? Harrison is another one. So let me have a look and see how they would line up. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Okay, let's go to Leeds then. That's the main one I need to change, and let's put maybe Harrison. That's annoying. Okay, and literally in 1 minute we're going to get the Chelsea and Forest lineup, so we can confirm what's going on there. Yeah, difficult one to say who's going to start now of Okafor, but let's go for Harrison then. And I think he's 5.4 million. I can't even see the price now because FPL is stupid. Okay. It's 5.2 million. Wow. Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Okay, so I'll show you my predicted lineups later. But obviously, first off, we're going to go through the confirmed lineups for the early kickoff today. So, let me get that up for you. And I'll also talk about FPL Challenge briefly before wrapping up this stream. I'll then save my voice, rest, try to recover as soon as possible because there is a lot to talk about with UCL Fantasy over the weekend. And I'll try to do a reaction stream as well. But yeah, let's see how Chelsea and Forest are lining up. Okay. We're going to start off with Forest. And Douglas Luiz does start. So we do have a change already. And Awani is up front. Wow. So no Chris Wood, no Igor Jesus. It's Awani. I did not expect that. So Sells in goal, Williams, Morata, Murillo, Sangari, Anderson, Awani, Gibbs White, Douglas Luiz, Milenkovic, Zinchenko. So I think the back five is still prevalent here. And yeah, some surprises there. I think with Douglas Luiz, I did think about that since he is available now. But yeah, Zinchenko as well. Straight into the fold. Makes sense. Okay, so we'll see how Forest do. And with Chelsea, which is the one of main interest, Sanchez, James, Achimpong, Chalobah, Cucurella, Gusto, Lavia, Neto, Andre Santos, Garnacho, and Joao Pedro. So Caicedo is on the bench, and Enzo's not in the squad. Okay, there you go. And Esteval's on the bench as well. So I had a stinker, I think, with Chelsea. So yeah, Neto does start. He was the one I was like least confident about, actually. So there you go. A lot of surprises in the Chelsea team. Doesn't bode well for Joao Pedro necessarily, but there you go. Let's see the uproar in the chat. Come on, Forest. Let's get a victory. Yeah. Okay, that's going to be very interesting indeed. Oh dear. Yeah, Tosin benched. I was... so yesterday I did have Achimpong in my 11. Then I did more research and I thought, yeah, I think Tosin will start. And there you go. Sometimes when you change things, it just goes even worse. So I'm going to go to my FPL challenge team, because I had a stink with these predictions. I think 8 or 9 correct for both of them. Something like that. So, this is my current squad. Rufs in goal, Gabriel, Salah, Semenyo, Haaland, and Joao Pedro. Let me change this, okay? And this is probably going to result in Joao Pedro hauling, but let's put Jared Bowen in here. Yeah, don't have him in my normal team. Let's enjoy some points. And, yeah. Haaland captain will remain. I think Salah Semenyo is fine. I'll probably keep Gabriel. Rufs is the one I'm least sure about. So maybe I'll go for Sanchez just to cover Chelsea defensively. Not a big fan of the fixtures this week. I mean, do I go for Dubravka or Darlow? It's not particularly appealing. So yeah, I might just go for Rufs. Let's go for Rufs still. Let's keep him in there. Okay, so that's my current FPL challenge team. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. But yeah, I've made one change. Bowen in for Joao Pedro. I do not like that Chelsea lineup. That looks bad. Can I change my prediction? I can, right? My scoreline prediction. Let's go for a Forest W. Yeah, that'd be nice. Hello, Dylan. I went Eze over Saka on Wildcard, hoping it pans out. I think Eze's a decent choice, but some people ask me, should I buy Eze this week or wait another week and get Saka? And in all of those situations, I said wait another week and get Saka. But yeah, at Eze's price, he's still one of the better options, and he's going to get consistent game time with Odegaard out, or you would think. Who is Lavia? Come on, surely you know about him. I'm going to try and get more differentials in. Screwed me end of last season, but need some spice at 3 million. Yeah, no, I mean, to enjoy the game sometimes you need to go a little bit different and not just go for template picks. Otherwise, it's like mindless zombies all doing the same things. Yeah, Joao Pedro pens, that is true. That is true. And to be fair, people did say that Joao Pedro is on penalties anyway, but he gifted the one to Enzo Fernandez, the one against Fulham. So Nika says Pedro will cook. Well, that would be good for my FPL team. Yeah, Chris Wood benched. I'm not surprised about that. I'm surprised about Al-Wani starting. But thank you to Punjabi for this. I'm not sure why... Yeah, look. That's what FPL Newsletter kind of hinted at. But... yeah, Caicedo's not starting, so I'm not sure what they're doing there. That was kind of a weird gif that they put there. So far, worst season after initial when I made no transfers or changes before Christmas. Yeah, this is my worst start as well, but the last couple of weeks have been better. If Enzo gets benched, I really hope he doesn't get subbed on. Well, you don't have to worry about that, mate. He's not in the squad. There are 30 more painful weeks to go. Relax, you can still win your mini-leagues. Yeah, that's a great way of summing it up. So Nika says, challenge draft. Kelleher, Calafiori, Gordon, Isak, Haaland and Pedro captain. Wow, Kelleher's interesting. I think West Ham will score. Is challenge a good tool to help you play the main game? It's just a fun sort of like companion game or app. No, it's not an app, it's part of the FPL app, but it's fun. You know, you can pick some players to make you feel better about not picking them in your normal FPL team. That's the way I kind of look at it. And I like some of the challenges. It makes you think outside the box at times or pick players you never would consider for FPL. So it's a nice addition. I like it. And in UCL Fantasy, for example, you've got the Predict the Game and stuff like that. I like it when these, like FPL or UEFA, they have these kind of complementary things to add on top of the main experience. ANWR says, I almost forgot the deadline and was going to wildcard. I kind of stress transferred players. What do you think? Pope, Senesi, Richards, Durin, Timber, Gakpo, Sarr, Kudus, Semenyo, Haaland, Joao Pedro, Gyökeres. you don't need to wildcard with that, in my opinion. You've got a very solid squad. Yeah, so I think that's fine. I don't even like late wildcards. I've done it before. I'd rather do it early. I think Anthony could score again. Yeah, he certainly could if he starts. That would be a consideration for me in terms of my FPL Challenge squad. Andre Santos and Lavio DM partnerships. Doesn't look great. I need Burnley to at least clean sheet. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, mate. I've got Dubravka starting. Woodless weekend. Pause. Don't know why I have a bad feeling about this game on my end. Hopefully it doesn't end up too bad. It's normally the weeks where I'm quite confident or don't really have the feeling I'm going to do badly, and then it kind of catches me off guard. That's the sort of weeks where I typically do really bad at. But yeah, I kind of get your feeling. I don't envisage a great game week for myself, but all we can do is hope for the best. Rudo 2 says that team is dreadful, and he's not talking about my FPL team for once, or my FPL Challenge squad. He's talking about Chelsea. Najo Pedro definitely on penalties this week. Yes, the only good thing about it, I guess. Holy Sharks, what the fuck, FPL Newsletter pulled a fast one. Yeah, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know the context of the GIF. Glad I held off on bringing in Enzo. Yeah, that's what I told people in a lot of situations with Ndai, for example. No need to sell him and go Enzo. I thought Enzo would start. I got it wrong, but he's not someone I would have bought in this week necessarily. In Challenge, Sunderland keeper for me. Yes, even though I think Wolves could score. Yeah, it has to be Pedro taking the penalties, that's for sure. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I did want to captain Pedro. Yeah, the thing is, though, you've got no Enzo, you've got no Palmer. I just think that 11 looks pretty poor. And also Caicedo, their best midfielder or player at the moment. Yeah, I think Forest could get a victory here. I think they can get a result. Ruler 2 says, I think Forest get a result, 2-1 or 3-1. It's possible. I mean, with that lineup, look, maybe Chelsea now kind of surprise people and they get the victory, but yeah, I'm kind of feeling to change my prediction now, which might be a bit mad. I also want to show you, though, the updated lineups I've got. I'll do that, and then my final scoreline predictions, for better or worse. Let's see. Let's go to... Yeah, I'm going to get this up as well. I'm actually going to change it to a draw now. We'll see how that ages, but there you go. Okay. Let's go for those predicted lineups, do them very quickly. Drop a like on the video. Let's get to 150 by the end of the stream. You can see my final Arsenal predicted 11. It's between Martinelli or Trossard for me. With Bournemouth, I have a few reservations. Hill or Jimenez. Also, Adley can start on the right. Even Christie has an opportunity in the midfield, but this is the starting 11 I've gone for the Cherries. And with Brentford, it's either a 4-2-3-1 or this back five, and ultimately that will influence certain players like Dango Ouattara. If it's a back five, he'll be on the bench. If it's a back four, he will start. With Brighton, Mitoma being available would be massive for them, and I think he would start in that circumstance. That would push Minter back to the right. Rotter just behind Welbeck is my prediction. Vif and De Kuiper as the fullbacks, but Kadioglu has done decent so far. And with Burnley, they have two injury doubts in Lyle Foster and Jadon Anthony. I think both of them will start, but then again, we saw with Chelsea how that turned out. And speaking of which, this was my Chelsea predicted 11, so yeah, it wasn't great. I did have Achimpong in my lineups video yesterday, but after more research, I thought Tosin could get a start, and how wrong was I? I think Kamada will start alongside Wharton. The rest is kind of what you would expect from Crystal Palace. And with Everton, it's either Alcaraz or Dibbling on the right, with Ndai being shifted to the left to replace the ineligible Jack Grealish against Manchester City. And with Fulham, they can play a back four again, because they like playing a 4-2-3-1, but they did go for this 3-4-2-1 in Game Week 7, and I think they'll do the same against Arsenal. And if Jimenez isn't available, they'll play Josh King up front And of course, Lukic could be replaced by Kearney. If they're both available, though, Lukic and Jimenez, they will start for Fulham. With Leeds United, I made one change to their 11, and that's Harrison coming in on the left. But we could also see Nemetcha or something a little bit left field, like Goodmanson playing left winger, and maybe Leeds going for a different left back in the process. They could maybe play Biol and Struijk at the same time, or change to a back three. There are a few alternatives there for Leeds United. Darlow will start in goal, as confirmed by Daniel Farke. And with Liverpool, I've got a few doubts, but if Konate is available or fit enough to start, he will get the nod over Joe Gomez. And I've gone for Szoboszlai as the right back, Gravenberch, McAllister and Wirtz all starting together, and Isak up front, Gakpo on the left, Sal on the right, and Ekitike on the bench. With Man City, there is a chance Kovacic starts over one of Reinders, Bernardo Silva or Gonzalez, so bear that in mind. But I've gone for this predicted 11, and hopefully for my FPL team, it's Reinders making way for Kovacic. That's what I'm hoping for. And with Man United, I think Mount will start over Cunha, and Dorgu will get the nod at left wing back. The rest is pretty much the same as that 2-0 win over Sunderland. With Newcastle, Joelinton is an injured out, but Eddie Howe said he should be fine, and the rest is what you would expect. The only concern I'd have is at right wing. It's either Elanga or Jacob Murphy to start there. With Nottingham Forest, this is what I went for, but it's Awani starting up front for them. Douglas Luiz is also taking the place of Sangari, and we're also seeing Sinchenko back in the fold with Nico Williams at right wing back. With Sunderland, I went for this predicted 11, with Alderete and Siddiqui remaining doubtful. I've gone for Talbi and Adingra on the wings, Lefay just behind Isidore. With Tottenham Hotspur, I think Tell could start over Richarlison, but that isn't set in stone. Odobert is the most likely at left winger, with Xavi Simons playing more centrally, and the rest is pretty much quite consistent. And with West Ham, I think Wilson will start up front, Bowen on the right, he went up in price overnight, and Soucek is back from suspension. He could play over Matheus Fernandes, or maybe West Ham play Paqueta up front, Matheus Fernandes more advanced, and Soucek in that midfield with Magassa. But Wan-Bissaka and Diouf should be the fullbacks. And with Wolves, their main concern is Hwang Hee-chan on the left-hand side, but the rest looks fairly solid now and more stable compared to earlier in the season when Wolves kept changing personnel. But now with this 4-2-3-1, they have found a decent formula, and now it's about getting the victories in the Premier League against Sunderland and Burnley up next. So as you can see, those are my predicted or my updated predicted lineups. What I'm going to do now, though, is show you my updated scoreline predictions. So after seeing that Chelsea lineup, which is horrible, this is probably going to age horribly, but I've gone for a 1-1 in the Forest-Chelsea game, so we'll see how that turns out. And ultimately, yeah, João Pedro goal, Chelsea dropping points, we will be there. That is what I want. And also, a Burnley clean sheet would be nice, but ultimately I'm only predicting 3 clean sheets here. Not many. For Arsenal, I'm less convinced about Man City. Even a 2-1 is definitely on the cards there. And I've gone for one of Burnley or Leeds to keep one. I've gone for Leeds, but obviously Okafor missing will be a massive blow for them. And for my FPL team's sake, I'm kind of hoping it's going to be Burnley getting that clean sheet. So you can see my updated scoreline predictions and predicted lineups. And yeah, there you go. FPL Challenge was covered. Let's go back to my final FPL squad. My main concern is Reinders on the bench. And obviously Sanchez Dubravka could go one of 2 ways, but yeah, Reinders is the only concern there. With Konsa and Reinildo, no concerns about them necessarily. And even if Konsa scores, so be it. That will be pretty nice anyway. But yeah, Haaland captain, Semenyo Vice, pretty standard stuff. For those with Salah, yeah, I've been saying this for some time now. He's a definite hold against Man United, and even against Brentford away and Villa at home. He is still a hold in most situations, but if you don't have Erling Haaland, yeah, selling Salah is still worthwhile for that sort of thing. Let's go for a few more questions and then wrap things up. So Ndai was the loser of the poll, you could say. He's got the most votes in terms of who you bench, with almost half of the votes in total. Reinders was second and Fernandes was just behind him there. Ruler2 says, I can see Brighton Newcastle being a free draw. Yeah, if Voltemada gets a few goal contributions there, I'd be very, very happy. Adil says, morning Dylan, how are you doing? Just saw you alive and thought I'd say hello. Yeah, all good. I'm just a bit annoyed about getting a illness in the last couple of days. Yeah, not great timing, but it is what it is. Is Xhaka a good option coming on for Enzo in my team? Yeah, decent option. I just think he'll get 3-4 points probably. The deadline is over. It's just we hit... Well, we actually didn't, but I normally just go over the limit, especially when we hit a Super Chat goal, and I wanted to cover the lineups, and I had a feeling Chelsea could do a bit of a fuckery with the starting 11, and we did get that. Glad that I benched Tosin. Pissed, like I said, is benched. Hope Spurs concede. Yeah, I've got Bodo starting, but I'm with you. Hopefully Spurs do concede. No Enzo. No offense, I don't like him. I guess the more pissed FA, FIFA, and UEFA never sanction him. I have a different opinion to you on that, but obviously I'm Argentinian. Maybe differences culturally and stuff like that, but yeah, maybe we can talk about that another time. Discord, maybe. We can have a conversation about it. I don't really like Enzo particularly, maybe. As a player, he's pretty decent, but the fact he plays for Chelsea doesn't help. Mina says, team, I've got 4 free transfers. Any suggestions? Still a good place to be. I think ultimately you do have, 2 Leeds players. I would try to upgrade on stack. And something you could do, I mean, I don't know what money you have in the bank, but I would try to get to the likes of Ismail Assar in the midfield and maybe Minter. Yeah, that would look pretty good. Are you sure about that, Easy? I mean, if Caicedo comes on, maybe, but the chances aren't great. If Chelsea win with this team, is that the end for Ange? Yeah, that's a great question. I personally think so. I think with Marinakis, his policy is having someone in place ready to just replace the manager he sacks. So, yeah, if he's got someone lined up, I think the trigger will be pulled. But it just doesn't make any sense. They should have kept Nuno in the first place, but he obviously fell out with Edu and Marinakis as well. And thank you very much for the kind words there, Mark. And also to ANWR, thank you for the answer, Dylan. But that was my stress wildcard transfers in. I also got Dubravka, Enzo, Rodon, and Mukiele on the bench. That's a very solid bench, but obviously Enzo's missing out, which might be a blessing in disguise for you. But anyways, you kind of answered by saying it's a solid team. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it did look like a wildcard team, to be fair. That was my prediction originally, Easy, but I'm going to hope, with copium and hopium, that Forest get something. Brighton win, Salah outscores Haaland, Chelsea lose, and Caicedo banger. Perfect weekend for me. I agree with all of them except Caicedo. Yeah. Got in Garnacho for challenge, love a laugh for the weekend. Yeah, because in FPL, no one would seriously consider Garnacho. And if he scores today, people will laugh at me, but it is what it is. He's still not a great FPL option long term. Well, Caicedo was an injury out, and yeah, they've also got some big games coming up in the Champions League and also next week in the Prem. But yeah, Forest away isn't a give me, even with their current situation, and I think they'll be quite motivated now and maybe more optimistic about a result, seeing that Chelsea lineup. Twisted Parky says, my predictions 2-1 Chelsea, 1-1 Brighton, 1-0 Leeds, 0-0 Palace Bournemouth. That's a good prediction, I like that. 2-1 City, I also like. Sunderland 1, Wolves 0, Fulham 1, Arsenal 2, Spurs 2, Aston Villa 1, Liverpool 3, United 1, and 2-1 Brentford. Interesting. Yeah. We've got some similar predictions, but also a few different ones like the last one. I've gone for 2-1 West Ham. Joao Pedro and Cucurella score. Yeah, I'll take the Joao Pedro one, but not Cucurella. Thanks a lot for all the help and info, mate. Can't wait for UCL now. Yes. I'll be having a look at all the games this weekend across Europe and then, yeah, deciding my transfers, fine-tuning the wildcard and limitless squads, and hopefully recording 1 tomorrow and then 2 on Monday. Real Life Demon puts a squad. Thoughts? So Haaland captain. Yeah, really good squad. You've got Saka and Eze, which is quite unique. No Arsenal defensive coverage, which I think you should address. They have the best defense in the league, one of the best in Europe. So I would recommend that. Your bench is very solid. That is actually bench boostable, in my opinion. So yeah. Do you think Enzo will be back by next week? Yes, but it depends on how severe the injury is. Morning, Dylan Bud. Same to you, JM. You went Voltamada. Well, I bought him last week, or a few weeks ago. If I was buying a forward this week and I had the funds, it would be Bowen, but I didn't have enough to get to Bowen, I think. Actually, that might be bullshit now. Yeah, I did have enough money to get Bowen last week, but he faced Arsenal away. Yeah, so it's all about timing. If I kept Chris Wood for another week, I would have bought Bowen now, basically. Yeah, I think Caicedo will be subbed in, but it all depends on game state and his situation. I've racked up 5 transfers now. I'm forced to make one. Yeah, that's the only concern or problem with having 5 free transfers, but it's a good position to be in. Indai can get a pen or Defcon at least. I played him too, but Rangers' high ownership could punish. Yeah, and Rangers getting a goal, he'll likely get bonus points, so I'm just hoping he can blank. Yeah, but with Rangers, I'm just expecting the worst there. I put Pedro captain, Chelsea, Haaland on first pick, sub bench as I have a doubtful player in the starting 11. Why would you do that? That's my question. Why would you put Haaland on the bench anyway? Because if that doubtful player starts, you've got Haaland on the bench and you've got players like Xhaka in your starting 11. What's that about? That's just my... I mean, look, play FPL the way you want to, but that's very risky. Yeah, the deadline has actually passed. If you do make the transfer, it will probably say error and it doesn't go through. The game is updating on the app and the website. I have Rangers off the bench for Enzo, so not bad. If Caicedo doesn't come on, I have Tarkowski coming in. Think Caicedo comes on though. Yeah, and it's probably a 1-pointer. Unless he does a Ballard and gets like 20 defensive actions in, what, 40, 50 minutes? Yeah, hopefully not ideal. Hopefully not. Can't have Liverpool winning again. I would definitely like a chat with someone with a different perspective, maybe way it was presented. Yeah, look, I mean, I understand the kind of uproar about it, but yeah, I just have a different opinion, maybe different cultural background and stuff. In Argentina, for example, if you call someone, I mean, I don't want to get cancelled here because I probably would just by explaining it, but like if, for example, there's a white person, you say gringo or blanco, like you say the same thing depending on the skin color. There is that sort of element already. I think Cavani was once in trouble about it for an Instagram post where to a friend, he called him by like a nickname and then people were saying, oh, you're racist. He's calling him, you know, a very offensive word. It's not really the case, but yeah, he obviously made a song. Yeah, I think that's what you're referring to, right? Yeah, I've got my own opinion on it. It's probably best to talk about it in Discord. We kept relying on last-minute winners to get us over the line, and the last 2 league games we've lost in the exact same way, so a big performance against United is needed tomorrow. Yeah, I think you'll get the job done. United will maybe cause a few, you know, worrying moments. They've got some good players, and they've underperformed this season in terms of XG and the actual results, but yeah, I think Liverpool win by a goal or 2. Yeah, I think they'll get a decent enough win, convincing performance, and then the pressure's back on Arsenal, I guess. Changing Forest to win 2-1. Wow. Well, I would change from 2-1 Chelsea to 1-1, but maybe we'll both be humbled and Chelsea win. I went for Fulham and Everton to score just for FPL. Yeah, I get that. I mean, it doesn't really benefit me that much if Arsenal keep a clean sheet in FPL, but I hope they do. Liverpool 7, Man United 2, nightmare beginning. Yeah, 7-2 is a bit too much in my opinion, but we'll get back to that very soon. Yeah, leave it for Discord, fella. Just in case. Just in case. Twister Parky says, how do you feel about the 5 free transfers at Christmas? Do you think it has taken away advantage for those that plan more and save pens not like me this season? Yeah, in Gameweek 16 for AFCON, everyone gets 5 free transfers irrespective of their situation. I think it's a little bit of a cop-out. I mean, that was the one change I kind of highlighted as something that wasn't really positive for the game. But yeah, I'm not like massively against it. Like I'm not going to lose sleep over it and cry, but I do think casual players and those that put less effort into it will obviously have not an advantage, but they have like a get out of jail free card and it levels the playing field, which I guess is the sort of point from FPL. They're trying to cater to the casuals and build, you know, their target audience and expand. But yeah, I just think it's a bit too much. Yeah, not Pens transfers. I had a feeling it wasn't Pens. I mean, it would make sense. It wouldn't really make sense anyway, but yeah, don't worry. I understood what you're saying in general. Yeah, I think, especially for those wildcarding in 13, I think those with 5 free transfers who wildcarded earlier maybe have like a little bit of an advantage there. Ultimately, I'm more against it than for it. I understand why they've done it, but I just think it's a little bit too much. Who's playing instead of Caicedo? Well, Lavia and Andre Santos. Hi Dylan, should I keep Grealish? Well, I talked about this in my transfer tips. He was more of a sell, but even in that video, I said that it's in some situations he could be held on to, but ultimately if you kept him for the City game where he's ineligible, you keep him for the next couple, I think. So Haaland on first pick for Hwang. I think you're South Korean, right? Based on your profile picture as well. Fair enough. Look, I think Hwang Hee-chan will start. Ultimately, I just think benching Haaland for someone like Xhaka, for example, doesn't really make sense. And also, every player that you've mentioned. Dark horse for the World Cup. Difficult to say. I mean, can I say Argentina? Because like we're 4th or 5th in the favourites to win it. Like Brazil are ahead. I mean, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, Argentina would be dark horses. Would they win it? Hopefully, but I think Spain would be the favourites, and understandably so. Yeah, I'm going to say Argentina based on the bookmakers and what they're saying. Oh, and I forgot about Xhaka. Yeah, just let's not talk about Xhaka again. Being greedy, I want a Virgil clean sheet, though. It's possible, but I think United will score, and hopefully it's Fernandes. Japan is the biggest dark horse. Well, they did beat Brazil after being 2-0 down, but... Yeah, Norway. I mean, yeah, look, Argentina being a dark horse seems silly, right? I was kind of in jest. I wouldn't say Belgium, France, Spain, England are not going to be dark horses per se. Could we say Netherlands, maybe? Yeah, I think Norway, Netherlands, Japan's a good shout. Yeah, that's pretty good. Argentina don't really classify as a dark horse, so I just find the odds a bit funny that Brazil are in the top 4 or something. Doesn't make sense to me. Another great decision by me. Bought in Enzo 3 minutes before deadline. We'll have to rely on Thiago. Long term, though, he should be a good option, but yeah, a bit unfortunate there with the way things have gone out for you. Cape Verde, the second smallest country to qualify for a World Cup after Iceland. Yeah, great story. That's the good thing about having also more teams participating in the World Cup, but it is probably a bit too much. Yeah, Ecuador are a good team. Their defense is really solid. Probably the best in South America. One of the best in the world. I think in the World Cup qualifiers they conceded 5 goals, but a lot of their fans aren't happy with the manager, who is Argentinian, Sebastián Becachese, and they play very negative football. So their approach is basically not to lose, and they don't concede many goals, but they also scored like 13 goals in how many matches? 18 games? Or was it... I don't know, something like that. It's not a great goal-scoring record. And ultimately, even in tournament football, you need to have that sort of reliability in terms of scoring goals. You can have a lot of goalless draws with Ecuador matches. So, yeah, that's a good shout for dark horses, but that's probably to just get to, what, a quarterfinal or something? Yeah, I don't think anything more than that. Mr. Parky says, I was ruthless last season, taking out Haaland, but nostalgia making it hard to take out Salah. I was the same with Ronaldo. Yeah, I get that, and obviously we know what Salah did, but since February he has been quite underwhelming, but yeah, I actually got rid of him for Gameweek 6. It did help that I wanted a triple captain Haaland, and I was very bullish on him, so that made it very easy for me. If I still had Salah now, I wouldn't be selling anyway. I think it's the right call. If you still have him, keep him for the next game or two at least. Yeah, I did it because Hwang will not play, and yes, I'm Korean. Jack is my starting 11. Fair enough. I mean, look, play FPL the way you want to. If Haaland blanks, you'll be laughing, and I wouldn't really mind too much anyway. Austria worth a punt? Yeah, maybe. Isak and Gyökeres Sweden partnership is not good. Well, they did quite well before, and let's not forget they did quite well in the Nations League. That's why they got like a backdoor entry into the World Cup playoff, for the qualification. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. But both Gyökeres and Isak are in bad form in general. I took out Kudus for Enzo on wildcard last minute. I still think Enzo's better long term. I would love to see an African nation win the World Cup. Well, if Argentina don't win it, and I'm looking at the alternatives, yeah, I'd much rather an African nation win it than, Spain and all these other countries. Brazil, definitely not. Germany, no. So yeah, for me, it's going to be an African nation. That would be my preference as well. Also Asia. I wouldn't mind an Asian team winning it, but basically, if it's like one of the other so-called Big 8, Big 9 nations, forget about it. Who would have thought Salah could be a differential captain pick at home against United? Yeah, I think he will haul tomorrow, yeah. Maybe not to the same extent as he did a few years ago when he got a hat-trick at Old Trafford, but yeah, I think a goal or two is possible. Yeah, Potter at Sweden, yeah, I forgot about that. I was surprised about it, but I think that could be a good appointment. I like UCL better, the game is easier. I finished top 10% most years. FPL is long and slow and unpredictable. Yeah, also more luck involved in FPL. There's more kind of variance and... yeah, massive swings from seemingly 50-50 calls, more of a template as well. I can only speak for myself, but whenever I kind of go different, not all the time, but most of the time I feel like it just goes wrong. And then when I go template and conservative, I just see like a differential opportunity go by me. So it's very frustrating to say the least. I'd prefer UCL Fantasy as well. The lineup looks good, yes, but I just can't fathom some of these players starting over Haaland. That's just me. I'm being boring in my kind of answer. But yeah, just benching Haaland doesn't make sense. Hey Dylan, prediction for Tuesday's game against Atletico. I think 2-1, and we must start Eze on the left with our defensive midfield. I might even say 1-0, actually. But I did say that against Fulham. So we'll see how this game goes today, but my current prediction will be 1-0 for the Arsenal. Can't believe it. When I had tickets to see Brighton smash Man United 4-0 and see Ronaldo, I was hospitalised. Then I go to Saudi and he is playing away that week. Yeah. Yeah, at least you saw him play, though. I saw Messi live, and I'm very happy about that. Never saw Cristiano, though. Ahmed says, Morocco, let's go. Yeah, obviously a great World Cup in 2022. I was hoping that it was the final against Argentina. And it is for under-20s, actually. Argentina-Morocco this weekend. That should be good. Actually, Potter to Sweden, to Swansea, Brighton, Chelsea, West Ham. Yeah, it was Östersunds. That was the Swedish club he was at before, so he's doing a bit of a full circle now. Thank you, Mina. I appreciate that. Good luck to you. Let's rack up some serious points this game week. Yes, I've gotten 75 in the last two. I'm hoping for even more this time round, but as long as it's a green arrow, I'm not going to complain. Do you think FPL will find an excuse to give us 5 free transfers in non-AFCON years? Probably, yeah. If a lot of the casuals like it and they see more engagement and growth, they're going to definitely find a way to incorporate in future seasons. That's a good point. Yeah, Kluivert was sacked by Indonesia after failing to get them to the World Cup. I saw that. I think Fabrizio Romano. All of his tweets just appear on my timeline. There should be an Underdogs World Cup. Yeah, but it's a bit like Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League. It's a bit like that, right? And ultimately, I think one World Cup is already enough. I get your point, though. It would be good for the smaller nations. If my players, Saka, Joao Pedro, Watkins, and Haaland score, then my FPL is a success. Jacques is a bonus. That's assuming that Hwang Hee-chan or someone else misses out and doesn't play at all for Haaland to start for you. But yeah, you've got some good players in your starting 11. I'm not disputing that. No, I didn't see Ronaldo. Oh, yeah, right. But wait, the 4-0 for Brighton against United. What, he missed out? I can't remember that. I thought Ronaldo played in that 4-0 loss. Oh yeah, you probably explained in that message, so sorry about that. Kluivert only hired due to a lot of Indonesian Dutch player connections. Yes, and Malaysia and Argentina apparently have something going on, as you said before. I so love the Norway result. Yeah, it's good to see them finally qualify. I'd like to see Sweden as well, even though I've got bad memories about them. Well, I say memories, I was 3 years old at the time, but yeah, in the 2002 World Cup, same group as Argentina, worst ever World Cup for Argentina. But we won't talk about that. We'll talk about 2022 champions. Östersunds, Potter first. Yeah, they beat Arsenal, and I went to that game. Graham Potter loves playing against Arsenal at the Emirates. I don't know what it is about the guy, but I don't really like him from that perspective. Gracias como siempre, Dylan. ¿Se viene Wildcard para esta jornada de UCL o cómo lo ves? Ya lo usé en la jornada 2 y me fue muy bien. Depende de tu equipo, pero para los que no lo hicieron en la jornada 2, creo que la jornada 3 es una oportunidad. Pero si yo no hubiese usado el Wildcard o el comodín en la jornada 2, creo que lo usaría en la jornada 4 o 5. We'd love to see an African nation do well in the World Cup. Senegal has a really strong team. Yes, their team on paper looks stacked. That's for sure. And yeah, I agree with you. I'd like to see an African nation do well. Not the expense of my country, I'm not going to lie about that, but against everybody else, I'd be rooting for them. I think Senegal dark horses. Yeah, they also beat England back in June. Yeah, that's a good shout. I like Senegal. Yeah. I'm from South Africa and I've always gone for Brazil in World Cups. They had a slow start in the qualifiers, but Don Carlos' magic will shine through. Yeah, sorry, mate. I hate Brazil in football. It's nothing personal, but Argentina-Brazil is the biggest rivalry in international football. So I respect them. You know, some of their players I love, but as in back in the day, right now I only love the Arsenal players there. Yeah, I can never support Brazil, really. Never, I think. Eddie Nketiah and Callum Hudson-Odoi merging for Ghanaian citizenship after waiting for England playtime. Yeah, a bit shameless, and Eddie Nketiah kept talking about England being the right step for him and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of these players do it. I think African nations are disrespected by these players in many occasions. They just want to play for England and the so-called big names. Malaysia now hiring a world-class lawyer from Switzerland to go against FIFA. Fair enough. Game is ready already. FPL fast turnaround this week now. Yes, they are quicker this season. That is true. Who's your favourite player in the Premier League currently? Well, it's probably going to be an Arsenal player. I'm going to say Gabriel, and he's Brazilian, by the way, but it goes to show, you know, I got no bias when it comes to that. Yeah, I think Gabriel is probably my favourite. I do like Saka, Rice, Subamendi. If it's non-Arsenal, that's difficult. I mean, I do like the Argentinians. McAllister would be up there. Yeah, if it's not from Arsenal, I'd have to think about this, actually. But yeah, that's a very interesting one. I mean, this season, I might even say Semenyo. And he's an Arsenal fan, so come to the Gunners and let's be even better. No, Ronaldo played in the 4-0, but I had tickets, but the NHS fucked up my stomach, botched appendix up. I'm sorry to hear that, and that's very gutting because you get a massive win against United. Ronaldo's there. It's like tick, tick, tick. It's like a perfect day. At some point, Potter lost his wand and his magic hat. He's still a decent manager, though. Yeah. I think he's a bit disrespected after the Chelsea gig. Yeah, I will. I will take a break. Juan says Haaland could break World Cup record for top scorer. I think Mbappe's the most likely. He's only a few goals away now. With Norway, there's no guarantee they'll qualify for the next 3-4 successive World Cups. I think they probably will, but you never know what's going to happen. Thank you very much, Sanika. What a joy hearing you speak some Spanish. FPL needs to reach that community. Yes, I've actually been asked to do some videos before, but I just think the engagement and stuff will be even lower, so yeah, I try my best to answer Spanish questions during UCL Fantasy and FPL Deadline streams. My favourite player is Salah, then Matoma. I do like Matoma, to be fair. He's not my favourite, but if I had to pick one from Brighton, it's probably him. Curaçao also potentially going to the World Cup if they beat Bermuda and the top leader Jamaica. Yeah, very low population. We actually played them in a friendly after the World Cup in Argentina. I think it was 7-0. Yeah, it was in March 2023. My favourite is Semenyo so far, or Bruno. I hate Bruno, to be honest, in general, but yeah, we disagree. Yeah, we have different opinions. Thank you to those that helped us reach 150 likes. I appreciate that. And if you haven't already, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both FPL and UCL Fantasy. I have been live for almost 3 hours, despite my voice being gone for the whole day and the whole week, basically. But the plan is to do a reaction stream, hopefully today, and we can react to the Saturday matches, and I'm just hoping that Arsenal get a victory. They really need that against Fulham. And then there'll be UCL Fantasy content for Matchday 3, the best Limitless and Wildcard squads in separate videos. That's the plan. A team selection, and also the deadline stream on Tuesday, which will be very hectic, to say the least. And after that, the focus will shift back towards FPL for Gameweek 9, with the transfer tips, best wildcard squad, my team selection, and yet another deadline stream next Saturday, I believe. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy content. Take care, enjoy the football, and I wish you all the best of luck. Get those green arrows, and let's keep on straying away from the template.